Chapter 31. Farm Life. The life of a farmer is very comfortable, and Muen is very satisfied with his current life. Apart from patrolling the farm every day, the rest of the time is spent exercising or doing other activities. Of course, life would be perfect if the Howard family didn't come to disturb him. In fact, extracting the essence of I was much more difficult than Muen had imagined. Only after he failed and damaged some of his equipment did he finally extract one essence of I. 2 full sets of Kree combat suits only provided him with an I essence that looked like a blue drop of water. On this day, Muen was lying in a rocking chair basking in the sun, the void energy flowing in his hands, and the I essence circulated in his hands with the movement of the void energy. Ta ta ta! The sound of footsteps rang in his ears. Muen knew who was coming without even looking. Doesn't Stark Industries need a boss? Why do you always go to the countryside? I'm happy to do that. Tony dragged out a rocking chair from the side and lay down on it. He took a bite of the fruit that Muen had washed and said, "Why should I be the one making money for you while you can rest?" Tony is very unhappy now. He didn't expect that after he came back, he would be forced to take over Stark Industries. The carefree life of debauchery is gone from him. Then you have to tell Howard that I'm not your father. Grabbing the fruit plate from Tony's hand, Muen took a bite of the watermelon. The sweet taste of the watermelon made him squint his eyes. But I can be your godfather. Call me Dad. Get lost. Stark threw the core at Moon. You are the most asshole I have ever seen. Muen waved his hand and said indifferently. It's just so, just a little better than you. His indifferent and shameless look made Tony so angry that he jumped to his feet. As expected, he still hated this guy. As Tony moved, a thumb-sized object flew out of his sleeve. The moment it approached Moon, it suddenly exploded, spreading a large amount of pepper. Tony burst into laughter after seeing Moon surrounded by pepper. Ha ha ha, I finally got you, didn't I? He has always been bullied by Muen, and now he can finally bully Muen once. This is his most powerful counterattack. Ha ha. Muen's voice rang in his ears, you're still a long way from here. As soon as he finished speaking, Tony floated up from the ground and flew towards the pond nearby. Puff Tony's bodyguard was stunned when he saw his boss being thrown into the pond. What are you standing there for? Why don't you go save your boss? Seeing the bodyguard standing there blankly, Muen returned to the rocking chair and reminded him. Looking at the bodyguard who rescued Tony, Muen shook his head while lying in the rocking chair. The bodyguard looked strong but not professional at all. It was obvious at first glance that he was a novice. After Tony came out of the pond, he exchanged some trash talk with Moon and then headed towards the farm next door. He had to change his clothes, these wet clothes made him very uncomfortable. Muen was also happy to be alone, lying in a rocking chair full of pepper smell, basking in the sun and tasting sour and sweet fruits. Howard Farm. Boss, who is that? Happy looked at Tony who had just changed his clothes in confusion. Why have I never heard of such a person? Although he had just become Stark's bodyguard, he was very familiar with the people around Stark, but he was not sure about Moon. You mean that bastard? Tony said, stretching his body. He is a shareholder of Stark Industries and also my parents' personal bodyguard when they go out. Personal bodyguard? Hearing this, Happy immediately understood who Moon was. Isn't this the mysterious bodyguard that everyone wanted to know before? Many people are curious about Muen's identity, but no one knows who he is. Thinking of Moon's previous achievements, Happy decided to learn from Moon and keep all the commercial spies out of Stark Industries. After completing the work of extracting the essence of I, Muen finally started other work. His equipment was put on the agenda. His equipment had been destroyed in the battle with Xiao. Now he had no other weapons except the long sword he got from Shero. Fortunately, Howard lived on the farm next door. While providing technology to Howard, Moon also got some equipment for manufacturing equipment from Howard. These devices are much better than those in Charles's house, allowing Moon to make more useful equipment, which allows Moon to show his talents. The first thing Muen made was not a weapon, but a void watch. This thing was of great use and made him very satisfied. The most important thing is that Muen plans to add some new functions to the watch. After all, he has also acquired a lot of technology. With the help of Howard's equipment, the Void Watch was quickly manufactured. This time the Void Watch was more precise than before and had some new functions added. In addition to the virtual energy stand, Muen also added a communication device, a cosmic translator, and an energy aggregation device. The Void Watch not only has defensive capabilities, but also has communication, translation, and even attack capabilities, and other equipment has also been manufactured by him one after another. A combat suit, a battle blade, an energy blade, and 3 guns for long-range firepower. The combat suit is all black and was made by Moon using Kree technology. It will have no problem with most attacks. The battle blade has also been upgraded. This time it is more precise and exquisite. When hung on the watch, it is only the size of the palm. As for the energy blade, Muen rebuilt it based on Shaluo's long sword. The energy utilization rate has been greatly improved, and even the range of the sword energy has been greatly improved. Of course, these 3 guns are the ones that Muen has invested the most energy in, and these 3 guns are also the most powerful weapons that Muen can manufacture now. 2 of the pistols are named Rex, which are high-powered pistols that can easily penetrate even bulletproof vests with bulletproof plates. Along with Rex's great power comes huge recoil. If anyone other than him uses this gun, even if they hold it with both hands, the gun will fly out of their hands at the moment of firing, because the recoil of this gun is too great. Muen also specially made a double-shot shotgun named Tiger to satisfy his interest in hunting. After all, there are always some wild beasts lurking outside the farm. However, after he tried it on a tiger, he found that the power of this gun was a bit excessive. With one shot, even the most ferocious beast would be instantly shot into a sieve, and there was no sense of accomplishment in hunting. The effects of these equipments far exceeded those he made at Charles's house, greatly improving Muen's combat effectiveness. After completing the manufacturing of the equipment, Muen handed over all the equipment and the equipment that had extracted the essence of I to Howard. This was a pleasant surprise for Howard. He didn't expect that Moon would give him the Kree combat uniform. Although the equipment Moon gave him were scrapped, in Howard's eyes, it didn't matter whether it was scrapped or not. What he wanted was to understand how the Kree technology worked. Chapter 32. Crystals and Vacation. Finally it worked. Muen held up a translucent, card-like copper crystal towards the sun. This was an amplitude crystal that he had spent a lot of effort to create, and it was called the pressure point. This is a crystal specially used to enhance the destructive power of cold weapons, which can greatly improve his combat effectiveness. The amplitude crystal he was holding in his hand took him a whole year to make after countless failures. There are faint fluctuations on the pressure points, which appear to be shining brightly under the sunlight. Let's try out the effects of enhanced equipment. The hand holding the pressure point suddenly surged with energy, and the moment the hand was placed on the energy blade, the amplitude crystal immediately disappeared from Muen's hand and instead merged into the energy blade. The energy blade emitted a faint blue light, and the sharpness of the energy blade became stronger. As void energy poured into his hands, the energy blade burst out into a more condensed energy blade, and the blade, under the influence of the pressure point, made bursts of humming in the air. The destructive power of this knife is even stronger. Just by holding it in your hand, you can clearly feel that the oncoming airflow is all dispersed by the energy blade. This is the case when he hasn't taken action yet. It is just the power emitted by the energy blade itself. Once he takes action, one can imagine what kind of power this energy blade will unleash. However, this is good news for Moon. If he encounters those Kree people again, he can easily break their energy defense and kill all those guys. The effect is good. Muen nodded. He was very satisfied with the effect of the amplitude crystal. Then let's strengthen all the equipment. A simple energy blade cannot meet his needs in battle. Muen plans to create some amplitude crystals to strengthen all his weapons, equipment, and armor. This is a huge project. Even though Muen has successfully produced an amplitude crystal, he still has to be extremely careful and not make any mistakes. The manufacture of amplitude crystals is extremely time-consuming, and the manufacturing difficulty of more powerful amplitude crystals increases exponentially, which makes Muen's progress even slower and he even fails several times. Finally, when the farm had some free time at the end of the year, Muen created the last and most complex golden amplitude crystal called concentration. This is an amplitude crystal that can increase the strength of the armor's skills, and can increase the attack effect released by the armor by 30%. After completing the manufacturing work, Muen immediately collapsed back in his chair. He hadn't expected that this piece of gold would be so difficult to make. It took him 2 full months to barely make it. A void energy surrounded him, and the next moment it turned into a void echo, and that concentration was also integrated into the armor by Muen. Ah, the fusion crystal made Muen groan. He felt a warm current flowing through his body. I didn't expect this thing to be more comfortable than massage. By the way, if this thing is integrated into a human body, what changes will occur? A strange idea appeared in Muen's mind. If the amplitude crystal was fused to humans, would humans die directly or would they become Supermen? I should become Superman, right? Touching the stubble on his chin, Muen thought, I remember that pets in the game can be fused. I'll find a rabbit to try when I have time. Ding 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 ding. Just as I was thinking about it, the phone suddenly rang. Moon, are there any activities for Christmas? Howard's voice came from the other end of the phone. Would you like to go on vacation to the Bahamas with us? Vacationing to the Bahamas? You two are really young at heart. You even want to go on vacation during Christmas. Muen raised his eyebrows and smiled, there's nothing to do on the farm, so I, your personal bodyguard, will go with you. After cleaning the house and taking protective measures, Muen dressed neatly and came to Howard's farm. As soon as I walked into the farm, I saw Tony sulking on the side. It seemed that he had quarreled with Howard again. Hey, hello, worker. Muen leaned against the wall and looked at Tony with a smile. But Tony ignored him. Now Tony is very angry. His father Howard always feels that when no one is around, he will make a big fuss at home. He has taken over Stark Industries now. Even without Howard's help, he can still run the company well. Why doesn't Howard trust him? Seeing that Tony had no desire to communicate, Muen looked at Happy on the side, but Happy just shrugged and spread his hands to indicate that he didn't know either. After waiting for a while, Howard and Maria came out. When passing by Tony, Maria stopped to comfort him, while Howard shook his head and got in the car. Aren't you asking too much of Tony? Muen, who was sitting in the driver's seat, asked. Give him some time, he'll do it well. No. Howard shook his head. Tony has to concentrate. What he did when he was studying was his business, but now that he has taken over the company, he can't be so willful. These words made Moon's mouth twitch a few times. He knew how willful Tony would be in the future, and Stark Industries was still thriving. After Maria got in the car, Muen started the car and drove the two of them towards the airport. The farm is some distance from the airport, and probably because Christmas is approaching, there are no vehicles along the way. Strange, how come there isn't even a single car? Looking at the empty road, Muen asked curiously, have they all gone home for Christmas? This situation made Muen alert. He always felt something was wrong, and even the speed of the car was slowing down. Just then, a motorcycle appeared behind them. The man was riding the motorcycle at lightning speed on the road, and his long hair was dancing wildly in the wind. Isn't there someone here? Howard glanced at the people outside the window and said, maybe there were not many people here just now. As soon as he finished speaking, the car driven by Muen suddenly lost control. No matter how hard he stepped on the brakes, he could not stabilize the car body and crashed into the trees on the side of the road. Sure enough, something is wrong. After the motorcycle passed by, the car suddenly lost control. How could such a coincidence happen in this world? Howard, Maria, how are you feeling? We're fine. The two were just frightened and not injured. Okay, you guys hide in the car first, I'll go down and take a look. After saying that, he got out of the car. The attacker gave him a familiar feeling, and he wanted to see who the other person was. The attacker also came to the vicinity on a motorcycle, and was obviously stunned when he saw Muen. You are. Before Muen could finish his words, the other party swung his fist at him. After seeing the guy's metal arm, Muen immediately understood his true identity. Snapped. He grabbed the metal fist with one hand, with void energy surging in his hand. He grabbed the arm and twisted it hard, then kicked it away. Chapter 33. Attacked. Muen, are you okay? Howard saw Muen fighting with the opponent and asked worriedly. It's okay, you and Maria stay in the car first, and I'll handle the outside. After saying that, Muen leaped up, energy surging under his feet, and kicked towards the opponent. Facing Muen's attack, the opponent also responded in time and raised his iron arm to block in front of him. After a dull thud, the guy was kicked far away by Muen, and his metal arm was even deformed. I think I know who you are. He knew clearly that in the original time and space, Howard and Maria died in a man-made car accident, and the murderer who killed them was Captain America's friend, Bucky, who was transformed into the Winter Soldier by Hydra. Because Howard retired too early, Muen thought that such a thing would not happen again, but he did not expect that Hydra would actually take action. He flashed in front of Bucky, grabbed his collar with one hand and lifted him up. Come to think of it, your brother seems to still be hibernating. Bang, he kicked Bucky, and his clothes were torn to pieces. Then, Bucky crashed into the motorcycle hard, knocking it far away. After hearing Moon's words, some images suddenly flashed in Bucky's mind, which gave him a headache. What? Bucky, who was suffering from a headache, pounced on Moon, roaring. Bang, seeing Bucky rushing towards him, Moon kicked him over and stepped hard on his metal arm. Click, Bucky's metal arm was twisted by Moon's foot, which was surrounded by void energy, and electric sparks burst out from it. Looks like a guest has arrived. A rustling sound came from the forest, attracting Moon's attention. He leaned over and put his hand on Bucky's head. Can you please go to sleep first? After saying that, void energy surged out from his fingertips. Bucky's consciousness was originally in chaos, but the moment the void energy entered his brain, a large number of memories emerged in his mind, and the severe headache made him faint. I sat on the ground using Bucky as a chair and listened to the rustling sounds in the bushes. Stop hiding, mice! As he spoke, the Rex in his right hand flashed with fire and the bullet shot into the bushes. What? Accompanied by screams, the guys hiding in the bushes stood up one after another, raised their guns and aimed at Mu-En. Boom! With a gunshot, the screaming guy fell silent. Oh! Mu-En raised his eyebrows and looked at the guy who fired the gun. Decisive and ruthless, not bad. Although these guys have their faces covered, their equipment is very sophisticated and you can tell at a glance that they are elite soldiers. The guy who fired the gun slowly raised his hand, and the moment he waved his hand downward, all the soldiers pulled the trigger at the same time, and bullets shot towards Mu-En like a metal storm. Mu-En smiled, and his figure instantly disappeared from the incoming bullets, and the next moment he appeared in front of the guy. Looks like there's nothing to talk about. Boom! Accompanied by Rex's gunshots, Moon began to kill. The amplitude-enhanced Rex has great destructive power. Although they are just 2 pistols, their power has reached the level of heavy anti-material weapons. Each shot could take the lives of one or even several soldiers, and the powerful destructive force tore the bodies of these guys apart. Before long, all the soldiers fell in a pool of blood, and no one's body was intact. But Mu-En stood there calmly, looking at the fallen soldiers and shook his head. Isn't it good to be an ordinary person? Why do you have to work for these scum? Mu-En knew the identities of these guys. The only one who could dispatch the Winter Soldier and such an elite force could be Hydra. But Mu-En never really understood Hydra's thinking. They clearly already controlled most of the power in this country, so why did they continue to destroy things everywhere? It was as if they were afraid that others didn't know that Hydra still existed. After walking past every corpse and confirming that all these guys were dead, Moon returned to the car. At this time, Howard had already walked out of the car and checked on Bucky's condition. I know him. Howard pointed at Bucky's face and said, his name is Bucky. He was a member of the first generation of the Howling Commandos and a friend of Steve and me. But he must have died in a mission. Well, so what? I've even fought aliens before, do you think I'd be curious about a guy who might be dead? Mu-En looked at him with amusement. Besides, don't you think his metal arm is weird? This also caught Howard's attention. Although the metal arm was twisted and deformed by Moon's attack, the design behind it was indeed not to be underestimated. Stark Industries also has purely mechanical prosthetic limbs, but even Stark Industries finds it difficult to manufacture prosthetic limbs as sophisticated as these. Howard was already immersed in the metal arm, while Moon returned to the car. Maria, how are you feeling? I'm fine. Maria smiled. It looks like our trip to the Bahamas will be forced to end. After experiencing an attack of this magnitude, Maria knew that if they continued their journey, their subsequent journey would no longer be safe. Even though Mu-En was always there to protect them, he couldn't ignore this dangerous situation. This is indeed unfortunate news. Mu-En also laughed and picked up the phone in the car. Happy? Hearing the voice on the other end of the phone, Mu-En said, give the phone to Tony. Mu-En's words made Happy realize that something was wrong. In the past, Mu-En always called Tony randomly, but this time he actually called Tony by his name. Realizing the seriousness of the matter, Harvey handed the phone to Stark. Call your paramedics and rescue teams, we're under attack. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrified shout came from the other end of the phone, attack? How are they? Are they injured? The voice still sounded loud and clear through the phone, making Maria, who was sitting in the back, smile and shake her head, then take the phone from Moon. Tony, we're fine. Moon dealt with the attackers, but our car was damaged. Maria's voice clearly soothed Tony, and his voice gradually calmed down. I'm glad you're okay. You guys stay where you are. I'll be there soon. Stark said anxiously. After hanging up the phone, Moon returned to Howard. This crazy researcher, could you please go back to the car first? I can't guarantee your safety here all the time. If you really want to study this guy, you can continue after you get back. After saying that, he carried Bucky to the car. Moon was still a little curious about this guy's target. After all, in his impression, this guy not only killed the Howards, but also took some things from the car. After sending Howard to the car, Moon's fingertips circulated void energy and gently pressed on Bucky's forehead, and Bucky's memory appeared in front of Moon. As expected, he had other goals. In addition to killing the Howards, he also wanted to seize the super soldier potion that restored Howard. Chapter 34. Hydra. Howard, I haven't heard of you having this. He took out a bag of blue medicine from the box in the trunk and shook it at Howard in the car. Howard frowned when he saw the super soldier potion in Moon's hand. It is indeed impossible for Moon to know the existence of this potion. Even Maria does not know the existence of this potion. He restored it secretly, and only a small number of people know about it. This guy was sent to steal this thing. If I hadn't read his memory, I wouldn't have known about this thing. Howard frowned even more deeply. He realized that there was a traitor around him. At this time, Moon's words rang again. Oh, by the way, I also saw a skeleton surrounded by snake feet in this guy's memory. This time, Howard widened his eyes and stared at Moon. Impossible, Hydra has been completely destroyed. Although he said so, Howard's heart was still shaken after seeing Moon's certain look. Moon knew that he could read other people's memories, and now that Bucky was right in front of him, there was no need for him to deceive himself. Looking back on what happened over the years, Howard discovered some clues. There were always unexpected events in S.H.I.E.L.D.'s actions over the years. Although smooth operations cannot always be guaranteed, there will always be problems and key items lost in some critical missions. It seems that we need to investigate those guys first. There are only a few people who know his identity and the super soldier potion, and they are all key targets of observation. Howard became alert and no longer trusted his so-called colleagues. These guys might be Hydra's minions. After waiting there for a while, Tony and Happy rushed over. After seeing the fallen bodies and blood on the ground around them, they couldn't help but gasp. How are you? Are you hurt? After getting off the car, Tony stumbled towards Moon and the others, while Happy was so shocked by the surroundings that he was speechless. An entire armed team was wiped out. Is this something a bodyguard could do? Glancing at Moon, who was leaning against the car with a calm expression on his face, Happy felt endless admiration for him. Happy, tie this guy up and shock him with the stun gun if he wakes up. He kicked Bucky beside him and turned to look at Tony, who was lying in the car and crying with excitement. Stop crying. Where is the rescue team? Are you going to let us live here? Who is crying? My eyes are just a little sore. After wiping the tears from his face, Tony continued, the rescue team will be here soon. He was very grateful to Moon. If it weren't for Moon, Howard and Maria would probably have been killed by the attackers. He even didn't hate Moon that much. Well, good job, baby Tony. He wanted to take back his previous thought. He really still hated this bastard. Seeing Moon's appearance of asking for a beating, his fist hardened. If he could beat this guy, he would definitely use his fist to kiss Moon's head hard. Not long after they arrived, the Stark Industries rescue team also arrived, followed by various media reporters. As the world's top arms company, Stark Industries has always been the focus of everyone's attention, and the Stark family is the focus of attention. They received news that the Howards were attacked on their way to vacation. This was big news and no one wanted to miss this opportunity. But when they arrived at the attack site, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. There were more than 20 beaten bodies lying on the ground, and blood was flowing like a river. As the protagonists of the attack, Mr. and Mrs. Howard were sitting in the car chatting with their son, Tony, the new boss of Stark Industries. Outside the car, only Moon was leaning on the car, quietly watching the rescue team's actions. I remember now, he is Mr. Howard's personal bodyguard. Mr. Howard's personal bodyguard? You mean the mysterious bodyguard that Mr. Howard hired with his shares in Stark Industries? All the media were in an uproar, as they all remembered how much controversy Howard's decision caused. After all, no one would have thought that the cost of hiring a bodyguard would be shares in Stark Industries. While the media reporters were heatedly discussing Muen's identity, the rescue team also took action. The bodies needed to be taken back for disposal, and Howard's vehicle needed to be towed out of the bushes. "Sir, we need to get this car out of the bushes." A supervisor of the rescue team stepped forward and spoke, but his voice was obviously trembling. He had seen the tragic conditions of those corpses, and he felt weak in the face of Muen. Glancing at the supervisor, Muen adjusted his badge for him and said with a smile, "Don't be so scared, I'm not a pervert." Then, he knocked on the car window again. "The family gathering is over now, we should go back. Just leave this place to the rescue team, and they can go back. Of course, they still have to take some things with them, such as the super soldier potion." Hydra Base. A man shrouded in shadows sat at the table. In front of him was a huge screen, on which was playing the news of Howard's assassination. Slap! The man turned off the screen and looked at the video phone next to him. There were several blurry figures on the other side of the phone. "Everyone has seen that our operation has failed. Howard's bodyguard is very strong." These people were very surprised at Muen's performance. Before, they just thought that Muen was here specifically to eliminate commercial spies, and they didn't pay much attention to him. But now it seems that this guy whose identity cannot even be found has a fighting ability beyond their imagination. "How about handing this guy over to me? I'm very interested in him." A voice came from the video phone, "I suspect this guy is the same as those mutants." "Are you sure you can do it?" The man said in a deep voice. "Whitehall, don't forget that an elite team under my command and a winter soldier were all taken care of by this guy." There was silence in the room for a moment, and the guy named Whitehall spoke again. "Don't worry, the power in my hands will definitely give you a surprise." Whitehall answered confidently. He has a team with special powers in his hands. Even if Muen can easily deal with the elite team, he can't be the opponent of that team. As long as he captured Muen, he was confident that he could brainwash this powerful guy into his subordinate. "By the way, don't touch Howard for now. After this attack, that guy will definitely seal up the super soldier potion. There's no point in killing him now, we want those super soldier potions." The man reminded everyone on the other side of the video call that they were all working towards the same goal. Hydra! Hydra! With the slogan, their video call was disconnected. Chapter 35. Pierce. Shortly after they returned to Stark Industries, a group of guys in suits also came to Stark Industries. They were looking for Howard. "I heard you were attacked. How was it? Are you not hurt?" The leader was a man about the same age as Howard. As soon as he entered the door, he asked Howard. "I'm fine, Pierce." Although Howard was wary of these guys, he remained calm. Those guys were dealt with by Muen alone. This guy is one of the people who knows about the super soldier potion. Until he can be sure who the traitor is, he must remain vigilant. After hearing Howard's words, Pierce turned to look at Moon, who was sitting on the sofa next to him. "You are Muen, right?" Pierce came to Muen, smiled and stretched out his hand. "If it weren't for you, Howard and his wife would have died at the hands of those terrorists." Pierce looked very frightened and seemed to be very worried about the safety of his old friend. Holding the other person's hand, Muen replied with a smile, "Howard used his shares in exchange for my protection. I can't let him down, right?" As he spoke, he raised an eyebrow at Pierce. The moment Howard said the other person's name, Moon knew his identity. After all, this person made an indispensable contribution to SHIELD becoming S.H.I.E.L.D. After talking with Muen, Pierce also stated his purpose. "I came here, firstly to check on you, and secondly because we will be the ones handling this attack. Don't worry, we will investigate it thoroughly and catch all the terrorists. Since they are going to take over this incident, then everything related to this incident must also be taken over by them. For example, the soldiers killed by Muen, and Buggy captured by Muen." "Stop it!" Muen stretched out his hand to block him. "Although I don't know who you are, if you want to take over this incident, you can investigate it yourself. Why do you take my spoils?" Muen came here just to disrupt the situation. He wanted to see how the Hydra leader would react. Those are all key evidence, so they naturally need to be handed over to us for safekeeping. Besides, one of them is a former member of the Howling Commandos, and we have a lot of questions to ask him. Pierce frowned slightly. This was the procedure they had to go through, and the same principle would apply even if they handed it over to the FBI. Muen nodded. You have a good reason. Why don't we ask together? Now, Pierce couldn't sit still. The reason he took over was to prevent Hydra's information from being exposed, but now Moon-en insisted on intervening, which made things difficult. What? Do you have any shameful means? Muen put his arm around Pierce's shoulders and said with a smile, Don't worry, I'm an expert at interrogating me, and I might be even more cruel than you. Now Pierce was speechless. If he insisted on taking over all the evidence, he would probably be suspected by the other party. And the other party has already said that his interrogation skills are very good. They can't use humanitarianism to suppress the other party, right? It was the Howards who were almost killed in the attack, not these guys. Seeing that the other party didn't speak, Muen patted the other party's shoulder. Come on, that guy should be awake by now. Generally, a brainwashed person will regain his sanity after a severe blow to the head. Let's go see what this guy knows. Looking at Moon walking towards the laboratory, Pierce felt bad. Although Bucky had never seen him, Bucky had always been controlled by Hydra. Once he regained his sanity, the secret of Hydra would be exposed. But he didn't have any good solution now. The people he brought might not be Muen's opponents. After all, the other party was under the attack of an entire elite team and a winter soldier, and all of them were wiped out in one fell swoop. Such strength is not something he can afford to provoke. What are you still standing there for? Come here. Muen stood at the door of the laboratory and looked at everyone. No. With a roar, pictures appeared in Bucky's mind. Longing, Rusty, 17, Dawn, Furnace. Voices sounded in his mind, some unrelated words spoken in Russian, and these words were the instructions that controlled him. Just when he was about to be controlled by the voice, a sudden voice came to his ears. What are you yelling about? This voice interrupted the voice in his head and brought him back from being controlled. Opening his eyes, there were two men standing in front of him, one young and one old. Looks like you're in pretty good shape. Muen raised his eyebrows and asked, Do you know who I am? Bucky shook his head. Although Moon's voice brought him back from control, he really didn't know Moon. Do you know him, then? Looking in the direction of Moon's finger, Bucky's eyes widened, and the memories of being controlled before came back to him. Howard. I was sent to assassinate Howard and take back the things in Howard's car. His expression suddenly became terrified, and he held his head and trembled on the bed. No, Howard is my friend, I can't do that. Seeing that this guy was beginning to become abnormal, Howard stepped forward and comforted him, I'm fine. What did you go through after the accident? After hearing Howard's words, Bucky's expression gradually relaxed and he recalled his own experience. I was taken to a secret base. It was a Soviet base on the surface, but it was actually a Hydra base. As he spoke, Howard finally understood that, just like Moon said, Bucky was brainwashed by Hydra and was sent to assassinate him. Howard fell into deep thought after looking at Pierce, who was standing next to Moon. It seems that there is nothing wrong with Pierce at the moment, but we still can't let our guard down until we find the traitor. He was well aware of the significance of the super soldier potion. Although the super soldier potion he restored might not be comparable to Dr. Erskine's original potion, it still had a strong effect. Pierce, it looks like our old rival is back. Yeah, I didn't expect Hydra to be so hidden. If it weren't for this attack, we probably wouldn't have noticed it at all. Pierce nodded seriously and said solemnly, I will send agents to look for their traces, and I hope to find something. After saying that, he turned around and left with his men. After sending Pierce away, Howard frowned. He didn't find anything unusual from Pierce. This guy might not really be a traitor. What do you think of Pierce? He is a cunning old man. Muen crossed his legs and sneered, good acting skills. Good acting skills? Howard was stunned for a moment and looked at Muen. He wanted to hear Muen's thoughts. Don't think about it. I felt something was wrong when this guy came. I don't know how close you are, but in my opinion, this guy has bad intentions. Muen waved his hands, collapsed on the sofa and groaned. Chapter 36. Ambush of Hydra. It had been so long since the attack that the Howards never mentioned a vacation again and had resumed their farm life. Bucky, who was awakened to his senses, completely got rid of the word commands that controlled him with the help of Howard, and he chose to help Howard manage the farm. They knew very well that Hydra would not give up, so both of them were extra cautious about Hydra's attacks and constantly strengthened the farm's defenses. That day, Mu-En was walking on his way back to the farm, with a metal box hanging on each side of his thighs. These were weapon boxes he had made using equipment specifically for storing kunao. Recently he became interested in darts, so he made 16 kunao for entertainment, and these 16 kunao were placed in 2 weapon boxes. I didn't expect Howard and Bucky to be dart masters too. Luckily I'm better than them, otherwise I would have lost to them. Moon was still very surprised at Howard and Bucky's dart skills, especially Howard, whose darts never left the bull's-eye of the dartboard. Although we know that Howard has a wide range of interests, one can't help but be amazed when seeing his dart-throwing skills. However, compared to Howard and Bucky, Tony and Happy's accuracy was terrible. The two could only ensure that the darts hit the dartboard, basically locking in the last and second place. Haha, Tony actually used an assistive device. Thinking back to their dart game, Mu-En couldn't help but laugh. In order to win a game, Tony actually invented a dart assist device. Although his accuracy was improved, he was refused to join the game. He was still sulking until Mu-En left. Back at the farm, a strange feeling arose in Mu-En's heart. Although the farm was no different from when he left, that strange feeling spread in his heart. He put his hands on the weapon box and took 2 kunao in his hands. Are there mice in the house? As soon as he finished speaking, a kunao flew out of his hand and shot towards a pile of firewood. The kunao was wrapped in the power of the void and directly broke up the pile of firewood. At the moment the firewood scattered, a black muzzle of a gun was pointed at Mu-En. I've been waiting for you for a long time. The speaker was a fully armed man wearing a tactical vest, his pistol pointed at Mu-En's head. It's been a long time since I was threatened. Mu-En smiled, not caring about the threat of the gun in the other party's hand. If I were you, I would only think about how to escape. Seeing Mu-En's look, the man snorted coldly and slowly raised his left hand. As he took action, many people came out from all over the farm, all pointing guns at Mu-En and surrounding him. It looks like they are well prepared. Glancing at the people around him, Mu-En said with a smile, "Are you ready to go to hell? Hydra." As soon as he finished speaking, the kunao in his hand flew towards the man. The moment he moved, Hydra soldiers pulled the trigger one after another and countless bullets fired. Kunao flew out of Mu-En's hand, drawing streaks of light in the air. Each kunao could pierce through the head of a Hydra soldier. Using the void mode to dodge bullets, Mu-En was rapidly harvesting the lives of Hydra soldiers. When Mu-En continued to reach for the weapon box, it was already empty. They're all used up. Looking at the empty weapon box, Mu-En sighed, 16 kunao are really not enough. Seeing that no darts were fired, the man pulled out a kunao from his shoulder and threw it to the ground. Get him! In order to capture Mu-En, they specially brought a team with special forces. Those guys have special abilities and are specifically responsible for dealing with Mu-En. He originally thought it was a big deal, but when he saw Mu-En appearing in various places from time to time, he realized that ordinary weapons could not defeat the opponent. Several Hydra soldiers stopped firing and walked out. One of them twisted his feet suddenly, and the ground was like a mole that dug holes very quickly, rolling up waves of soil and rushing towards Mu-En. There was also a guy with wildly growing hair all over his body. The hair gathered into a huge fist and smashed towards Mu-En. Faced with this sudden special ability, Mu-En raised his eyebrows in surprise. He didn't expect that Hydra actually had an army of people with special abilities. Nice ability, but too weak. He took off the battle blade from the watch, and the power of the void continued to flow into it. Under Mu-En's control, the battle blade began to spin wildly around him, instantly crushing the attacking giant hair fist. It's time to send you on your way. He dodged the attack of the earth wave and threw the sword out. He then rushed to a Hydra soldier whose skull was pierced by a kunao, pulled out the kunao, picked up the gun in the opponent's hand, and began his counterattack. The battle blade bounced back and forth between the Hydra soldiers, killing one with each collision. The gun in Mu-En's hand continued to spew flames, and bullets infused with the power of the void were shot at the soldiers. From time to time, Mu-En threw kunao. Faced with the huge gap in strength, the Hydra soldiers were quickly killed, and only those few people with special abilities and the leading man were deliberately left behind by Mu-En. Okay, the trash has been dealt with, now it's your turn. The attack by Hydra ruined Moon's good mood, and he felt that these guys should be taught a severe lesson. He controlled the battle blade to fly towards the ability users, and Mu-En appeared in front of the man in a flash. Actually, I am somewhat interested in you, Hydra. After saying that, he grabbed the man by the collar, turned around, threw him, and slammed him to the ground. Before the guy could get up from the ground, Mu-En stepped heavily on his back. With a few gunshots, all of the guy's limbs were broken. Come and see what you can rely on. Grabbing the man's head and lifting him up, Mu-En whispered in his ear, "Look, aren't these guys interesting?" Those ability users kept using their abilities to try to block the war blade, but the war blade that was infused with void energy was beyond their ability to resist, so they could only keep dodging the war blade's attacks. "I'll show you something interesting." With a snap of his fingers, the battle blade that was bouncing back and forth between the ability users instantly released an explosive energy, blowing all of them up. "What a fun thing, isn't it?" His voice sounded like the whisper of a devil. After catching the flying sword, Mu-En shot at several people. Mu-En fired very slowly, but with every shot, the head of a person with special abilities would be blown up. Those with special abilities wanted to fight back, but were horrified to find that their abilities had disappeared. Before they could raise their guns to fight back, Mu-En had already taken care of them all. "Come, let me see where your base is." The power of the void surged out of Mu-En's hands, and the next moment he disappeared from the man's sight and entered his memory. Not long after, the man suddenly opened his eyes and murmured. It would be fun to suddenly become a void reverberation in front of Hydra. Chapter 37. Destruction of the base. Mu-En was fully armed and controlled the man's body to head towards the Hydra base. Shortly after he left, Bucky hurried over wearing a combat suit made by Howard and carrying 2 rifles. After seeing the corpses of Hydra soldiers all over the ground, Bucky's heart tightened and he hurriedly shouted in the farm. "Moon! Moon!" His calls went unanswered, which made Bucky very uneasy. He was worried that Moon would be captured by Hydra and transformed into a winter soldier like him. When he arrived at Mu-En's house, the note on the door caught his attention. "Howard, please be safe these days. I have to leave for a few days. There are some things I need to take care of. If you need anything, you can let Bucky help you." Bucky's anxious mood calmed down after seeing the message on the paper. It seems that Mu-En was not captured, but where will this guy go? He knew that Moon's target was the Hydra base, but the Hydra base was hidden very deeply. Even he, the winter soldier who was used as a weapon by Hydra, did not know the location of the Hydra base. Putting the note in his arms, Bucky began to clean up Moon's farm and threw all the killed Hydras into the pickup truck he drove. Howard must be notified, and these bodies must be dealt with. Looking in the rearview mirror at the cargo box filled with bodies, Bucky started the pickup truck and drove towards Howard's farm. After leaving the farm, Mu-En rushed straight towards the Hydra base. The vehicles left behind by the Hydra happened to become Mu-En's means of transportation, and he moved all the way to the base. Meanwhile, in the Hydra base, a guy who looked like an officer was reporting to the figure in front of the screen. "Sir Whitehall, I just received news that our people are on their way back. I believe that the guy will be brought here soon." "Well, no matter how powerful that guy is, he can never be a match for that army. He will soon become a sharp knife in my hand." Whitehall was very satisfied with the current situation, especially after hearing this guy's report. He became even more satisfied. It won't be long before Mu-En falls into his hands and is brainwashed into a sharp knife. Drop drop. After a sharp beep, the officer's eyes lit up. The person they were discussing had arrived. Mu-En drove a Hydra car and used the man's face to pass through layers of checkpoints and finally arrived inside the base. "Why are you the only one here? Where are the others?" The officer frowned and asked. "Those ordinary soldiers can be ignored, but Lord Whitehall's special forces must not have any mistakes." Mu-En controlled the man's body, smiled, and uttered a double mix of sounds. "Them. I killed them all." The moment he finished speaking, a large amount of void energy was released from the man's body. The void remnant broke through the man's body and appeared in the Hydra base. Seeing the reverberation of emptiness coming out of the man's body, the officer pointed at the strange armor and shouted, "Kill him!" Da-da-da! There was a burst of gunfire throughout the base, and even rocket launchers were fired at Mu-En, trying to bury him here. Facing the attacks from all directions, Mu-En leaped into the air, with void energy surging at his fingertips. Grasp of the void tendrils stretched out from the void cracks and reached out towards various weapons. Void tendrils snatched away some of the Hydra soldiers' weapons and hovered around him. Puff! A beam of light shot out from the weapon, piercing through the body of a Hydra soldier, and then all the weapons around Mu-En were activated, attacking those soldiers. Mu-En raised his hand and pointed at a Hydra soldier, and as the fragments on his right hand floated up, void energy gathered at his fingertips. Accusation. The space around the soldier being pointed at began to distort, and a crack emitting void energy was opened. The soldiers around the crack were all contaminated by the void energy and began to attack the people around them. As one of the 3 lost skills of void reverberation, accusation can corrupt those who are contaminated by the void energy, and those corrupted will be controlled by accusation. Now those Hydra soldiers are fighting for him. Because of the sudden rebellion of the Hydra soldiers, the situation in the Hydra base became very delicate. The soldiers kept their distance, and no one wanted to die at the hands of those around them. But Mu-En didn't have this concern. He raised his hand again and pointed at the officer. Those people with special abilities are very interesting, I like them very much. Deny. As he finished his words, a torrent of void energy surged from his arm, releasing a beam of light at the officer. When the officer saw Mu-En raise his hand, he began to retreat and hid behind many Hydra soldiers. He originally thought that the soldiers in front would attack each other like before, but what he didn't expect was that a beam of light shot out from Mu-En's fingertips. The power of the beam was beyond his expectations. Even though there were so many soldiers in front of him acting as human shields, the beam still pierced through his chest, as if the fully armed soldiers in front of him were made of paper. After dealing with the officer, Mu-En turned to look at the others. There were still a lot of soldiers here, and killing them one by one would be too inefficient. Super-dimensional purgatory. The void reverberation leaped into the air, and all the fragments on its body exploded instantly along with the void energy. All the soldiers who besieged Mu-En were turned into ashes under this blow. Mu-En turned into an energy skeleton and walked around the base. Most of the Hydra soldiers in the base died in the extra-dimensional purgatory, and only some soldiers guarding other parts of the base were safe and sound. Mu-En held the tiger in one hand and began to search the base. The Hydra base is very tightly guarded, with access control in almost every place. Unfortunately, the access control is of no use to Mu-En, who is holding a tiger. A heavy gate blocked his way, and Mu-En needed to pull the trigger. 2 shotgun shells from the tiger could solve most of the problems. Bang bang, 2 gunshots rang out almost at the same time. The heavy gate became tattered after being attacked by 2 shotgun shells from the tiger, and collapsed with a loud bang after Mu-En's kick. Behind this gate is a secret warehouse, and in the center of the warehouse is a piece of metal. Vibranium. Looking at the label on the vibranium, Mu-En couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. Hydra has a lot of good stuff, and they even have this kind of stuff. He knew the origin of vibranium very well, and it was precisely because he knew the origin of vibranium that he felt so emotional. After all, vibranium rarely flows out of Wakanda, let alone such a large piece of vibranium in front of him. This is a good thing, so Mu-En naturally won't let it go. Holding the vibranium in one hand, Mu-En continues to explore the base. After exploring and killing along the way, Mu-En came to a room full of screens. In the center of the room there was a huge screen, and on the screen there was a dark figure. "Who are you?" the figure asked, his tone sounding a little serious. "You mean me?" Mu-En pointed at himself from under the energy skeleton. "You will know that I will become Hydra's nightmare." Chapter 38. Howard's faked death. "Seriously, you really don't know the location of the Hydra base?" Howard asked softly while looking at Mu-En, who was exercising in front of him. "I really don't know where the other Hydra bases are. If I have to say who might be Hydra, it's only that old man Pierce." Moon answered impatiently. He was really getting annoyed by Howard. Ever since he returned with vibranium, Howard had been asking him questions about the Hydra base. If Hydra was so easy to find, they would have been eliminated long ago. Not to mention the officers in the Hydra bases, even the leaders of Hydra may not know all the Hydra bases. Seeing that Mu-En still gave the same answer, Howard remained silent. He also knew that Hydra had survived until now without being discovered, so confidentiality should never be underestimated. As for Pierce, who Moon believed was Hydra, although he had doubts, he could not find direct evidence and could only be wary of Pierce's actions. "Okay." Howard sighed and pointed to the pickup truck's cargo box. "Your equipment is ready." After bringing back the vibranium, Moon gave this magical metal to Howard and asked him to help him make a set of equipment. Howard readily agreed. Based on the Kree technology he analyzed, he used vibranium to create a combat suit for Moon. Although it is an imitation of the Kree combat suit, its appearance and functions are very different. Compared with the Kree combat suit, the vibranium combat suit does not have many functions. The function of the vibranium combat suit is very simple. It can absorb any form of attack energy, store it, and release it as the user moves. This combat suit consumed about half of the vibranium, and the remaining half was made into vibranium alloy by Howard through a certain proportion. Although the effect of vibranium was weakened a little, it met Howard's needs. He also made some special equipment for himself and Maria to protect them at all times. This was also the real reason why he left the farm. He also recast a mechanical arm for Buggy, used vibranium alloy to enhance the power of the mechanical arm, and even added many functions to Buggy's mechanical arm, allowing him to deal with many different situations. The combat suit made by Howard had a metallic luster all over, and it shone with golden light under the sunlight, but this was not what Moon-En wanted. After all, it looked like he was deliberately telling his opponent his position. Seeing Moon-En looking over with a puzzled look, Howard came over and explained this is just the basic form of the battlesuit. You can change the appearance of the battlesuit as you wish. As he spoke, he pressed the edge of the vibranium wristband and gently scratched it, and an energy grid appeared on Moon-En's arm. Now Moon understood how to operate it. This was the technology used on the Kree combat suit, which could change the shape of the combat suit through the grid. After a few random operations, the combat suit turned into a light gray color, with some dark blue metal decorations spreading all over the body along the gaps in the combat suit. It feels good. Moon-En nodded with satisfaction. He was very satisfied with this combat uniform. One more thing. Howard said to Moon and Bucky, I plan to hold a funeral with Maria. The two were stunned by this. What did it mean to hold a funeral? Did these two guys not want to live anymore? Seeing the shocked expressions of the two, Howard smiled and explained, Maria and I plan to fade out of Hydra's sight by faking our own deaths, and I've been doing that for the past few years. Ever since Hydra sent Bucky to attack them, he has been thinking about how to change the status quo. The Hydras were hiding too deeply, and he couldn't find a way to destroy them. Although Moon-En destroyed a Hydra base, no one knew how many Hydra bases there were. All he knew was that it couldn't be the only base of Hydra. So, after being attacked, he began to prepare. If he could not destroy Hydra, he would disappear from the public eye. And this is the real reason why he has been asking Moon about the Hydra base. Now that the substitute body he has cultivated has matured, it won't be long before he and Maria die one after another. After understanding Howard's idea, the two of them suddenly realized that it was to avoid Hydra. That's a good idea, but there must be a reason for your death, right? You died suddenly and inexplicably, which seems abrupt no matter how you look at it. You're right. Remember when you brought back the vibranium, Maria suddenly became seriously ill. Howard smiled and said, from then on, we started the show, using the fight when you were attacked as an excuse. We were both frightened, and Maria even became ill because of the fright. After all, we are both older, and after 2 attacks, it is normal for our bodies to have some problems due to shock, isn't it? That was true. Howard and Maria were both old, especially Howard. He gave birth to Tony when he was in his 50s and was now in his 70s. It was not a big deal that he died of illness due to some shock. Okay, so how are you going to do it? Although Howard's plan was pretty good, the most critical thing was how to implement it. After all, their deaths had to seem normal to everyone. I'm quite old, so I'll be the first one to fake my death. In a few days I'll be in a coma due to heart problems. You can send my stand-in to the hospital for emergency treatment. You must act anxious enough. As for Maria, she will need some time. There are certain reasons for Howard's choice. First, he is older, and it is normal for him to have heart problems after 2 attacks. He will also die of a heart attack, and no one will be able to find any evidence against him. Second, he is Hydra's real target and must disappear from Hydra's sight as soon as possible. A few days later, Howard suddenly had a heart problem. When he was taken to the hospital by Moon, his clothes were soaked with sweat and he fell into a coma. After emergency treatment at the hospital, Howard was temporarily out of danger and lay unconscious in the intensive care unit. This stand-in is good. Moon thought to himself as he looked at Howard lying on the hospital bed, except for the lack of consciousness, he is almost exactly the same as him in other aspects. This substitute was cultivated by Howard using biotechnology, and his entire body is in the same condition as Howard himself. If Moon didn't know that this thing itself was a dead object, he would have thought it was a clone of Howard. Although this Howard has all the organs, in fact all of them are fake and are just tissues used to deceive medical staff. And this is indeed the case. Howard successfully deceived the medical staff and made everyone think that the elderly Howard had developed a heart disease due to excessive shock caused by the 2 attacks. This incident was spread almost all over the country. Many people couldn't help but feel regretful, and even the hidden Hydra were stunned. Chapter 39, Funerals and Acquaintances. A few weeks later, Howard fell ill again and was sent to the emergency room, but the rescue efforts ultimately failed. The news of Howard's death spread throughout the world. A wealthy man who had lived for more than half a century passed away. Maria and Tony held a funeral for Howard with red eyes, mourning Howard's past. Many people came to the funeral, including directors and leaders of Stark Industries, as well as friends of Howard and Maria. Everyone looked very sad, and when Muen was presenting flowers, he saw a familiar guy. Isn't that Pierce? Who's the black man next to him? Looking at Pierce, who came to pay his respects, Muen was a little curious. He had never seen this guy around Pierce before. However, he was merely curious and had no desire to communicate with Pierce. After the funeral, Howard was put into the coffin and buried by everyone. Pierce comforted Maria and said with a sad face, "Regarding Howard's passing, I can only say that it is a loss to the world. If it weren't for the 2 attacks, perhaps this wouldn't have happened." Maria sobbed. The performances of these 2 people opened Moon's eyes. Pierce is a veteran agent and his acting skills are beyond words. He didn't expect Maria's acting skills to be so great. As for Tony next to Maria, he had been crying so hard that his eyes were red. Alas! Muen sighed, "It's really unlucky to be deceived by my own father." Tony didn't know about Howard's fake death, and he was expressing his true feelings now. Half a year after Howard's death, Maria also died of excessive grief. This time Tony cried even more miserably. In just half a year, he lost his parents and became a complete loner. Because he didn't want to be reminded of the past, Tony never came to the farm again and left the management of the farm to Bucky. What he didn't know was that there was a huge space under his farm where Howard and Maria were living. The 2 people who faked their deaths did not choose to go out. They were very cautious and had been living in the underground space of the farm. "You really don't plan on meeting Tony? That kid was deceived badly." Muen sat in the underground space and looked at the couple. These 2 guys could actually laugh. "Not now." Howard smiled and shook his head. "Tony must stay like this. We must divert Hydra's attention. Okay, this is your family affair anyway, but I have to remind you that at your current age, you may not survive until the day when Hydra is destroyed." This is what Muen is really worried about. After all, he and his wife are ordinary people, and their bodies cannot last for too long. If Tony hadn't been told the truth earlier, they might have really been separated forever. "Haha, you don't have to worry about that. I've already prepared for this kind of thing." He used the Kree technology to improve the restored super soldier serum. Although the strengthening effect on the human body was no longer obvious, it could prolong human life. He called this thing Life Serum. The equipment beside him was prepared for injecting the Life Serum. As long as the Life Serum was injected, he would have plenty of time to investigate Hydra. Seeing Howard so confident, Muen stopped trying to persuade him. After all, Howard had his own plans. Driving a pickup truck through the city, Muen planned to buy some daily necessities as the supplies on the farm were almost running out. Suddenly, several police cars with sirens on appeared at the intersection ahead. This aroused his interest in watching the fun, so he drove after them. The police car didn't go far and stopped next to a Blockbuster video store. "Oh!" Muen raised his eyebrows. "It's going to be fun." This video store was smashed to pieces and looked like it had just been robbed. I don't know what kind of stupid thief would rob a video store. Muen had seen many robbery videos, but those guys either robbed banks or robbed jewelry. This was the first time he saw someone robbing a video store. What's the point of robbing here, selling pirated CDs? Sitting in the car and watching the police performance quietly, I saw the policemen get out of the car one after another and check the situation in the video store. In one of the cars, Muen saw a familiar figure walking out of the car. Isn't this guy the one who attended Howard's funeral with Pierce? Looking at the black man in a suit, Muen became more interested. A kind-looking guy walked up to the car parked in front of the video store, asked something, and suddenly walked to the side with the black man. Looking in the direction they were walking, there was a telephone booth, and a woman was standing in the booth. "This is Moon fell into deep thought. Kree? Yes, that's right, it's the Kree combat uniform. He hadn't seen the Kree combat uniform for a few years and he almost forgot what it looked like. Stroking his chin, Mu-En smiled. I didn't expect the Kree to come again. This time, they will definitely not come back. Then he turned his attention to the woman again. Speaking of which, could this woman be Carol's spendthrift bitch? Thinking of the plane engine that was blown up by Carol, Mu-En felt so angry that his teeth were itching. That engine could definitely extract a lot of essence, but it was a pity that it was blown up by that prodigal woman with one shot. Because the distance was too far, and the phone booth's plastic awning made it impossible for him to see the other person's face, so he had no choice but to get out of the car and walk over. Dong dong dong. The black man in the suit knocked on the awning of the phone booth and the woman turned to look. Hello miss, did you see a lady falling from the sky? She smashed a big hole in the video store over there. Witnesses said that she was dressed like a game character. It was obvious that the black man was talking about her. But the woman looked around calmly and pointed in a direction. Yes, I saw it. She should have gone there. The questions and answers between the two made Mu-En laugh. These two guys, one was asking questions even though he knew the answer, while the other was pretending to be stupid. However, he also knew the identities of these people. The woman was Carol, but she had obviously lost her memory. The short-haired black man was the future famous Malfuck. So this guy has hair. I thought that boiled egg was always bald. His laughter attracted the attention of several people, and Nick Fury was obviously stunned when he saw Moon. You are Pierce's subordinate, right? I saw you at Howard and Maria's funeral. Yes, you can call me Fury. Fury stretched out his hand and said, I took over Pierce's job. Fury was deeply impressed by the powerful bodyguard in front of him. Both attacks that Howard experienced were handled by this man alone. He vaguely remembered the shock he felt when he saw the killed Hydra soldiers. This strong man didn't seem like a human being. Really? That old guy isn't dead yet. Mu-En curled his lips with some regret, then turned to look at Carol and said, Miss, where did you buy this costume? I want to buy a few sets for fun. Chapter 40, Harry Braised Eggs. The teasing words made Carol slightly stunned. This is the Star Troopers combat uniform. Although I don't know who this outgoing girl is, her combat suit is a special combat suit used by the Kree Interstellar team. Not to mention the C-53, there are not many such combat suits in the entire universe. Star Troopers? The gaming club you formed? Mu-En's question was also the doubt in Fury's mind. He was very curious about Carol's origins. This strange woman, who fell from the sky, was obviously not an ordinary person. He had to investigate her thoroughly. Miss, please show me your ID. Fuss, a member of the Star Troopers. In response to the two people's questions, Carol frowned and said her name. She didn't have time to waste with these two natives. Moon was not surprised by Carol's answer. He knew very well that Carol had lost her memory. But Fury didn't think so. He suspected that this woman had other purposes. Fourth, how long do you plan to stay here? I'm here to catch the Skrull who infiltrated your planet. As soon as I catch him, I'll leave immediately. Carol replied. Ha, it looks like he's a superhero who maintains world peace. Mu-En sneered and looked at them. When was the last time we knew about a superhero? Well, 50 years ago. Fury replied, Captain America, the man who represented freedom and peace. Fury's answer was correct, but Mu-En looked thoughtfully at the guy next to him who looked like a good guy. It seems that this nice guy in front of me is also a Skrull. Who is this guy? Moon had already guessed it after knowing Fury's identity. He is Coulson, a super fan of Captain America. According to the question he asked just now, this guy should be the most excited, but he looked calm and behaved very calmly. However, this has nothing to do with him, and he still remembers that Carol helped the Skrulls in the end, so Moon had no intention of dealing with this guy. His target was all on those interstellar teams. Compared to Moon's thoughts, Fury seemed a little solemn. This member of the Star Troopers who called himself Fuss did not sound like a normal person. This guy is either a lunatic or an alien, but he is more inclined to believe that he is a lunatic. Can you explain what Skrull means? Ah, congratulations, you finally asked a useful question amidst all the nonsense. Carol looked sideways at Fury and said, the Skrulls are an evil shape-shifting race that can change their form at the genetic level to invade various planets. A race that can change its appearance at the genetic level? This made Fury deeply suspicious. The guy in front of him might really be a lunatic. How could there be such a race? Then how do I know you're not a Skrull? As soon as he finished speaking, Fury was kicked out by Moon, and the moment he flew out, a purple beam of light passed by him. And Carol reacted immediately. A beam of energy suddenly lit up from her arm and shot out a beam of light, instantly destroying the location where the purple beam was emitted. Oh? Looks like there's a new friend. Muen looked at the guy who ran away with interest. The weapon that fired the purple beam seemed to be able to extract the essence of I, thus expanding his target range once again. Seeing everyone chasing after them, Moon shook his head and turned to walk towards his pickup truck. Although he wanted to get these guys equipment, now was not the time. He had to wait for the Kree people to arrive. As soon as I started the pickup truck, I saw a man walking out of the Blockbuster video store. He was Coulson, who was looking for clues in the store. Hey, buddy, have you seen where all the police cars here have gone? Coulson was a little confused at this time. He just went into the video store and took a look around, so how come everyone was gone when he came out? Seeing Coulson's confused look, Moon smiled and leaned out of the car window. You mean that Harry Braised Egg Fury? He went with you to chase the attacker. Harry Braised Eggs? Coulson was stunned for a moment, but he quickly realized what Moon said. What did he mean by Fury and I went to chase the attacker? He was clearly in the video store. Don't. Just stand there, they haven't gone far, I can give you a ride. Thank you very much. Coulson thanked with a smile and got into Moon's pickup truck. After getting in the car, he did not forget to call Fury. He wanted to know where he came from. During the call, it was obvious that something happened on Fury's end. It felt like a car accident, and there was a loud noise. Oh, looks like something happened with Midden. Moon shrugged and drove Coulson down the road, heading towards the scene of the accident. Lying in Fury's car is a green-skinned humanoid race. These are the Skrulls mentioned by Carol, an alien race that can change their appearance at the genetic level. Is this the other me you were talking about? Coulson stared blankly at the dead Skrull and said in disbelief. He thought there was someone who looked exactly like him, but what was up with this ugly green-skinned guy? Moon curled his lips. After the Skrulls died, they would automatically return to their original appearance, so Coulson certainly couldn't see himself. The Skrulls were taken away by Fury and his men, while Moon drove back to the farm. Howard, guess what I saw today? A flying steak. Howard raised his eyebrows and smiled. What steak? Do you remember the Pegasus project 6 years ago? I met the pilot who was abducted by the Kree that day. Now her name is Fuss. It seems that she thinks she is a Kree. The moment Moon mentioned the Pegasus project, Howard stopped joking because he knew that Moon was not joking with him. The pilot. Howard frowned. I remember you said that the Kree people treated us badly. That's right. After all, as a civilization that built an empire in the universe, do you think they would care about a civilization like us that has trouble even leaving Earth? Moon nodded. He did not have a good impression of the Kree. He knew from Sharrow's memory that the Kree were a race that would do anything to expand the territory of their empire. I remember there was another pilot in the Pegasus project. They both had a good relationship with Lawson. If the Kree come again, they should be looking for Lawson's things. If you go to the base, they should be looking for that pilot. Maybe that pilot knows where the engine designed by Lawson is. Although the Pegasus project failed, it does not mean that there was a problem with the engine, because the plane was shot down by the Kree, not the plane itself. The most important thing is that the energy of the engine comes from the cosmic cube, which was borrowed from him by Lawson, and he must get that thing back. Okay, I happen to be interested in the Kree Star Troopers. If you're lucky, you can add a few complete Kree combat uniforms here. After leaving the farm, Moon carried his weapons and headed towards the Pegasus Project base, a place he and Howard had been to many times. Chapter 41, Cosmic Orange Cat Devouring Beast. Because of Howard's fake death, Moon had no direct reason to enter the base, so he was already in void mode before entering the base. Freely traverse your base in void mode to check out what's going on. It seems those two guys haven't arrived yet. He wasn't in a hurry to find another pilot, after all, he knew Fury and Carol would be there. So, Muen wandered around the base, looking for the cat. There is a cat in this base, which is known to everyone in the base. The cat was left by Dr. Lawson. It is a very well-behaved orange cat named Gugu. When Moon and Howard came here in the past, they saw the orange cat more than once. Mu-en knew very well that this seemingly well-behaved orange cat was not an ordinary creature, but a famous element-devouring beast. He just didn't know why, but this Yuan-devouring beast would stick to him every time he saw him. If he hadn't seen a Yuan-devouring beast extending its tentacles before, he would have thought that this guy was interested in him and wanted to taste him. In a corridor, Mu-en saw an orange figure. Cuckoo. Hearing Mu-en's call, the orange cat named Gugu walked over. Mu-en gently scratched its chin, making the guy close his eyes comfortably. Mu-en squatted down and picked up Gugu. He shook the little guy and said, "I say, you are one of the most terrifying creatures in the universe, why do you always stay in this place? It is clearly a cosmic creature, but it is more docile than a real cat. It has been here for such a long time without devouring or hurting anyone." But Gugu didn't respond to him. Instead, he turned over in his arms and yawned. After enjoying the massage given by Mu-en for a while, Gugu suddenly stood up and walked in one direction. Any findings? This guy wouldn't act randomly, he must have discovered something. Following Gugu, Moon saw Fury and Carol, who were like thieves. They were walking cautiously in the corridor, and Fury was holding a piece of transparent tape in his hand. "Hello little guy, you are so cute." After seeing Gugu, Fury squatted down in surprise. "Look at you, naughty little guy, are you the cutest cat? Are you?" This guy's sudden performance made Mu-en, who was in the void mode, twitch his mouth constantly. It turned out that the boiled egg who calculated everything in the future would also look like this. "What's your name?" He lifted up the cat tag on Gugu's neck. "Gugu? That's so cool. A cool cat should have a cool name." Fury's performance made Carol feel helpless. After seeing the archive room, she looked at Fury. "Fury, here." Hearing Carol's voice, Fury stopped interacting with Gugu. What they were looking for was in the archive room. Carol raised his hand and fired a shot, and the door of the archive room was blasted open. Has this woman been this grumpy in recent years? There was one shot at the Blockbuster video store, and there was another shot now, giving Mu-en a feeling that he could rely on energy cannons to deal with everything. Watching the two people walk into the archive room, Mu-en picked up Gugu who was about to follow in. "We'll be waiting for them right here." While they were waiting, Fury came out in a hurry, and soon returned to the archive room with a strange look on his face. After he returned to the archive room, a pair of agents in suits also rushed over. "Wow, it looks like there's going to be some fun to watch. Do you want to join us?" "Cuckoo." "Meow." He made a cooing sound and turned to walk to the side. Originally, Mu-en thought that Gugu was not interested in what was going to happen next, but after Gugu took a few steps, he turned around and called out to Mu-en again. Now Mu-en understood that Gugu was going to take him somewhere, and after thinking for a while, he followed him. Gugu must be taking him to an important place. Following Gugu, Mu-en came to a helipad built in a cave, and Gugu took Mu-en straight to the plane. Who are they waiting for? Looking at Gugu walking into the plane, Mu-en thought for a while, they should be waiting for Carol and Fury, right? Gugu seems to be very familiar with Carol. Sitting on the plane, Mu-en and Gugu waited quietly together. Sure enough, not long after, accompanied by a crash, a group of people rushed into the tarmac while Carol and Fury quietly boarded the plane. "Oh, your intuition is really strong." Gently rubbing Gugu's head, the plane accelerated from the tarmac and flew out of the cave amid the roar of the plane engine. As the plane rose higher, Gugu clung to the box as the plane continued to rise. Meow. The sound made the cabin silent. Fury and Carol turned around and saw Gugu lying on the box with his legs spread out. It looks like there's a stowaway," said Fury. "Yes, there are still two." Mu-en's voice sounded in their ears, and then he gradually revealed his figure. "You two did a good job." Mu-en's sudden appearance surprised both of them. Why did Mu-en suddenly appear here? "Long time no see, Carol." Moon picked up Gugu from the box and leaned against the box and said, "It looks like you have lost your memory." "Star Troopers member, fuss?" "Ha!" Mu-en laughed sarcastically, leaving the two of them stunned for a long time. They didn't expect that Mu-en actually knew Carol. You know, Mu-en didn't behave like that before. Want to know why? Find Marvel's engine and you'll know. Seeing that Moon had no desire to talk, Carol stuffed a stack of photos into Fury's arms. "Maybe we do know each other." The photos showed her and Mavel, and if it weren't for the photos, she would have thought she was a Cree. But now she was confused. She was clearly an Earthling, so why did she wake up on Hala planet? The plane soon landed in a small town where lived Carol's former best friend, the black female pilot Maria Rambo. I still remember the girl's expression when she arrived at the scene. I believe she will be very surprised when she sees you. Moon still had some impression of the pilot Rambo. As soon as he got out of the car, he kept calling Carol and looked very anxious. But you don't want to talk about our relationship. Looking at Muen who was holding Gugu beside him, Carol continued, by the way, does Rambo know you? Well, maybe. Who doesn't know Stark's super bodyguard? Without directly answering Carol's question, the three of them walked into Rambo's yard together. Rambo's yard is very large, and there is even a helipad for parking small planes. Rambo is busy repairing the plane with a propeller engine in the yard. Excuse me, is Maria Rambo here? Hearing the sound, Rambo, who was repairing the plane, stopped and looked at Carol who suddenly appeared in front of him with some disbelief. And in the cabin, a little girl with a big afro jumped out. Aunt Carol! The little girl shouted in surprise, Mom, it's Aunt Carol. After saying that, he hugged Carol excitedly. I knew Aunt Carol was still alive. Chapter 42. Identity. This is ridiculous. How could there be aliens who transformed into humans? Rambo didn't believe Carol's words. She would rather believe that Carol lost her memory due to the plane crash and now just wanted to recall the past. Even her daughter Monica looked at Carol with suspicion. That's impossible, Aunt Carol, there can't be aliens in this world. That's right. Fury tilted his head and raised his eyebrows. It is indeed impossible for aliens to exist in the world. Even if there are, we can't just say it out loud. Fury's meaning was clear, this alone would not be enough to convince her former best friend. Carol also reacted to Fury's words and stood up and walked to the kettle. You don't believe me? Her hands lit up slightly, and the kettle made a sound as the water inside it boiled rapidly. Does this prove it? No way, this is too cool. Monica stood up in surprise and walked towards the kettle. She was stunned by the scene, and curiously wanted to explore the energy in Carol. Only Muen curled his lips, his heart bleeding. The energy in this guy was from the engine of the plane, which should have been extracted by him into the essence of I. Oh, I remember now, your things are still there, I'll get them for you. Monica ran to the side excitedly and soon took out a box. Look, Aunt Carol, this is your photo. She picked up a stack of photos and waved them at everyone. There's also your coat on the plane. Looking at the things Monica took out, Carol began to become silent, and her memories began to flash in her mind. While she was immersed in her memories, Muen came over. You may not believe this, but the Skrulls are sitting outside at the dining table. Hearing this, several people hurried out of the room, only to see Rambo and Monica looking for something on the plane, while a green-skinned guy was sitting obediently at the dining table. This guy came in from the back door, and was grabbed by the neck by Muen just as he was about to enter. If this guy had not meant any harm, he would have been killed by Muen the moment he walked into the room. Talos. Carol's hands lit up with energy, and Fury raised his gun, ready to shoot at any time. Can you wait a moment, please? Moon knocked on the table. This guy wants to talk to you, especially you, Carol. After hearing what Muen said, the two finally stopped, but Talos was still very nervous. But, can you get this guy away? The reason why he was so obedient was not because of Muen's fighting ability, but because of the Gugu that Muen placed in his arms. Ha 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 ha, aliens are afraid of cats. Fury was so amused by the scene that he almost couldn't hold his gun steadily, and the others were laughing just as hard. Gugu is not a cat. Picking up Gugu Muen from Talos's arms, he explained, it is a cosmic creature called the Devourer. It's a very ferocious one. As he said this, he rubbed Gugu's head. This guy was surprisingly well behaved. After Gugu was taken away, Talos finally relaxed and shook his body. The Devourer is truly one of the most terrifying creatures in the universe. By the way, I have a device that was left behind when the plane crashed 6 years ago. You call it a black box. It contains information about you and Dr. Lawson. Mother. Monica took her coat off the plane and froze when she saw Rambo. She turned around and saw her mother had turned back into a Skrull. Wow! This is so cool! Monica shouted excitedly. She didn't expect that the alien she had just heard from Carol would actually appear in front of her. Monica, go into the house first. Rambo was worried that Monica might be in danger, so he asked her to go back into the house. As for Taros and the other guy, they had to explain obediently and took out a CD because of the threat from the devouring beast. The CD contains the conversation between Carol and Lawson on the plane. It turns out that on the day of the plane crash, Lawson and Carol were not test flying the plane, but were heading to Dr. Lawson's laboratory. However, they were attacked during the flight and eventually crashed. This voice message made countless images flash through Carol's mind, and her past was no longer vague. However, the voices include not only Lawson and Carol's, but also several different voices, the most obvious of which is Moon's. Were you there when the plane crashed? Several people looked at Moon. They didn't expect that they met Moon when the plane crashed. Yet. Moon nodded slightly, looked at Carol and said, 6 years ago, I was fighting those guys in the front, but you just blew up the engine and blew me into the lake. This made everyone speechless. Moon was fighting in the front, but Carol was causing trouble behind him. You were hit by the energy of the engine and ended up like this. It seems that the medical technology of Harastar is quite good. They actually saved a dying guy like you. Why do I feel like you know so much about the Kree? Carol frowned and tilted her head to look at Moon. Are you also a Kree? Yet. Your information is wrong too. It only contains your data for the past 6 years. Her words reminded Fury, and he suddenly realized that all the information about Moon was available only after he appeared next to Howard. Seeing that several people were doubting his identity, Moon smiled. Don't worry, I'm not an alien. If I had a spaceship that could travel freely in the universe, you would have seen me on planet Hala. After all, I'm very interested in the supreme wisdom. And does my identity have anything to do with the current situation? Shouldn't we be considering how to find Mavel's laboratory? After hearing this, several people nodded repeatedly. In any case, Moon at least had no ill will towards them. Moreover, in the voice of the black box, Moon was fighting with the members of the Star team, but was blown into the water by Carol. C-53 jump point. A female member of the Star Troopers frowned and hesitated to start the jump. Captain Roger, are we really going to planet C-53? She still remembered the battle 6 years ago. That weird and unreasonable guy had suppressed them and even the aircraft was almost blown up. She really didn't want to go to that planet again. Roger was also well aware of her concerns. In fact, Roger was also very troubled. It was not good for FERS to fall on that planet, but he fell in the place he hated the most. Thinking of Moon who almost killed him, Rog felt a headache. He really didn't want to meet that unreasonable guy again. Start the jump, we'll leave right after picking up Firth, and we won't stop anywhere. Seeing how cautious the two were, a member who had never been to Planet C-53 looked at them in confusion. What's that thing called Planet C-53? I feel like you guys don't want to mention that planet. Nothing, just a troublesome guy. Roger replied, I hope we won't meet that guy again. Chapter 43. Cosmic Rubik's Cube. After a night of transformation by the Skrulls, the aircraft gained the ability to travel into space. After Rambo sent the children to his parents' home, everyone boarded the plane and flew into space. Marvel's laboratory is not on Earth, but on a spaceship outside the Earth. Their target is this spaceship. As for the coordinates of the laboratory, Carol, who had recovered some of her memory, had already remembered it and flew straight into space in her plane. Soon after leaving the Earth, the plane began to feel weightless, which indicated that they had entered space. Rambo activated the added gravity device, and everything returned to normal. Carol also began to operate on her arm to determine the specific location of the laboratory. As Carol operated, the light in front of the plane suddenly lit up, and then a huge spaceship appeared in front of everyone. A scientist can actually have such a big spaceship. Moon looked at the spaceship in front of him and couldn't help but sigh, the Kree people are really rich. I must get a spaceship of my own in the future. This is Dr. Lawson's laboratory, the Kree Empire cruiser. Using a cruiser as a laboratory, one can imagine how much the Kree Empire values Marvel. As the plane got closer, the sense of oppression brought by the cruiser became stronger. Talos seemed to be very familiar with this place. He led everyone forward and came to a spacious laboratory. In a place in the laboratory, a cube emitting blue light appeared in front of everyone. Is this the energy core? Rambo asked. In Marvel's notes, he's called the Cosmic Cube. Carol replied. Moon simply reached out and took down the Cosmic Cube. Yes, the cosmic cube, a cube containing infinite energy. I usually call it the space gem. As soon as he got the cosmic cube, Mu-En felt an endless amount of energy. For Mu-En, this energy meant an endless supply of ice essence. It's such a great thing, it's a shame to only use it as infinite energy. Mu-En casually stuffed the cosmic cube into an iron box. He planned to take it back to Earth and slowly extract the essence of I. He could already foresee that different battle armors would be created by him. Woo! A deep voice echoed in the spaceship. It was from Talos, who was summoning the Skrulls hiding on the spaceship. Woo! Waves of similar voices came from everywhere, and at the same time many Skrulls came out from the darkness. Talos hugged one of the female Skrulls, and then affectionately touched the head of a little Skrull next to him. What? Suddenly the female Skrull screamed and she saw Carol wearing a Kree combat uniform. Although the color of the combat uniforms has changed, they still remember the Kree who have been chasing them, and they will never forget what the combat uniforms look like. It's okay, she led us to you, she is our friend. Talos comforted the many frightened Skrulls, and Carol also came out at the right time and apologized to the many Skrulls with an apologetic look on her face. Just when everyone calmed down, the door of the laboratory suddenly opened and several guys in green combat uniforms walked in. Are you starting to treat your enemies as brothers? Roger said while holding Gugu. Their appearance made everyone alert. Just as Fury picked up the gun, he heard a sound from the side. Following the sound, he saw a blue-skinned woman holding a gun, motioning him to drop it. Coming in front of everyone, Rog threw the Gugu in his hand away and shook his head as he looked at Carol, whose combat suit had changed. What happened to your original combat uniform? Just as we expected, the blue-skinned woman said, she was brainwashed. The supreme wisdom will restore her to normal, said a bearded man holding two long swords. They have taken control of the entire spaceship, all the Skrulls must die, and as for Carol, the supreme intelligence will restore her. You've been lying to me. Carol angrily wanted to use the energy in her body to attack, but her energy seemed to have failed and she couldn't use it. What we give you, we can naturally take back. Hearing this, Carol ran over and wanted to fight this guy, but her fighting skills were no match for Rogue and she was knocked down instantly by Rogue. Rogue's arm guard suddenly opened, and green energy continued to vibrate, controlling Carol. Yo Gugu, why is your fur a mess? Mu-En's voice suddenly sounded. He smiled and stroked Gugu's fur, then walked through the crowd to Roger. Hello, the invasion commander of the Kree Empire. Seeing Moon's appearance, Roger frowned. He didn't expect to meet the guy he least wanted to see on the Kree Empire cruiser. Why are you here? Good question. Putting Gugu on the ground, Mu-En said with a smile, of course it's to block you. Could it be for these guys? He doesn't care about the life or death of the Skrulls. What he cares about is the Skrulls' weapons and energy, as well as the equipment of Rogue and others. The reason why he didn't take action against Carol before was because she was from Earth and they were acquaintances of his. Naturally, he couldn't help but take action against these guys. He didn't believe that these guys could escape this time. He casually put his hand on Carol's neck, pinching the limiter on her neck, and the void energy in his hand continued to surge. Click, sparks flew from the limiter and Mu-En pulled it off directly. Then Carol felt that his strength had returned, and it had become stronger than before, and the power surged out uncontrollably. Find a place to vent your anger. These guys belong to me. As he spoke, he drew out the energy blade. Void energy gradually lit up along the energy blade, making a buzzing sound in the air. The energy blade instantly drew a blue fan-shaped arc of light from the air, and a deep scar appeared on Rogue's chest. Compared to 6 years ago, you haven't made any progress. Mu-En swung the knife again, this time not at Rogue's chest, but at his neck. Don't think you're the only one who's improved. Before you turned into that monster, you were no better than me. The device on Rogue's arm released a strong vibration. Compared with 6 years ago, all the equipment on his body had been greatly improved. He did not think that Mu-En in this state could kill him. And the result was just as he expected. Mu-En, who had not transformed, could not completely ignore the equipment on him. In the strong energy vibration, the energy blade cannot break through the energy vibration defense. A green energy beam hit Mu-En, but Mu-En did not react at all, as if he was not the one injured. Just as everyone was puzzled, a green light flew out from Mu-En's hand, pierced the arm of the guy who fired the gun, and nailed him to the wall. Now, everyone could see clearly that it was not a beam of light, but a sharp flying knife. It seems your subordinates can't wait any longer, so I'll send you on your way. Chapter 44. Beheading. As soon as he finished speaking, Mu-En's body was surrounded by void energy and turned into a void echo. Swish, the power of the energy blade became even stronger, and the equipment on Rogue's arm began to be damaged by the attack of the blade. Knowing that his equipment could not withstand such an attack, Rogue rolled on the ground and fired at Mu-En. Kill this guy! Under his command, several members of the interstellar team took out their strongest weapons and fired at Moon. Boom boom boom, one after another, energy cannons blasted towards the void reverberation, and the void reverberation was buried by the energy cannons. That's all. Moon's voice came out from the artillery fire, and along with a ray of light, the remnant sound of the void rushed out from the artillery fire and rushed towards the female Kree. Ah! Mu-En grabbed the woman's neck and lifted her up from the ground. You are so beautiful. If I remember correctly, we met 6 years ago. The hand that was pinching her neck gradually gained strength. The woman struggled frantically in Mu-En's hand, but it was of no avail. Minerva! Rogue roared. Minerva was his adjutant. The devices on his arms turned on again, and the things in the laboratory flew towards Moon under the control of the two devices. Looking at the incoming attacks, Mu-En grabbed Minerva's neck and pulled her in front of him. Look at your captain, how worried he is about you. As she spoke, the fragments on her body suddenly floated up, a crack in the void opened, and Minerva was thrown by Mu-En to her teammates. I told you, none of you can escape today. As soon as he finished speaking, the whisper of truth was instantly activated. Even more powerful void energy wrapped around the energy blade, emitting powerful fluctuations, and the light emanating from the weapon became brighter and brighter. Mu-En swung the energy blade and instantly cut off the flying objects. Falcon sneak attack. Although the energy blade was swung wildly, Mu-En's attack was like a rain curtain, penetrating all holes and attacking Rogue in all directions. How could Rogue, who had already experienced the strangeness of Mu-En's attacks, be willing to fight Mu-En in close combat? The moment he saw Mu-En coming to kill him, he began to dodge backwards continuously. The energy devices in his hands were constantly controlling the surrounding objects to attack Mu-En, and he always kept a distance from Mu-En. Your attack is indeed terrible, but it can't hurt anyone. Even if it is a powerful attack, it is meaningless. Rogue mocked Mu-En. In order to prevent the strange situation that happened 6 years ago from happening again, he had upgraded his equipment many times to prevent the situation that happened 6 years ago. Now, his equipment can obviously suppress Mu-En. Although the monster that Mu-En turned into has strong combat power, it is meaningless if he can't touch him. Mu-En seemed to be angered by this guy's sarcasm. He attacked Rogue madly, but he couldn't touch him at all. Ha ha ha, it seems like you haven't made any progress in the past 6 years. Seeing Mu-En attacking in anger, Rogue even showed a sarcastic smile. Call out, a green beam shot into his arm, and the device on one of his arms was instantly blown up. Minerva, you! Swish, just when Rogue wanted to scold Minerva, the energy blade in Moon's hand suddenly shot out a sword energy, cutting off his other arm with an intact energy blade. Well done, beautiful! Mu-En smiled, and the energy blade instantly pierced through Rogue's chest. But Minerva nodded to Mu-En and smiled. She has been controlled by Mu-En. The void crack before did not appear for no reason. It was one of the 3 lost skills besides the void reverberation, accusation. Minerva was thrown back by Mu-En on purpose. He just wanted to see what these guys would look like when they were betrayed by the people they trusted the most. Now, 3 members of the star team have fallen beside her. Feeling his body being torn apart by the energy blade, a virtual image appeared in Rogue's hand. Accusator, destroy this cruiser. Before he could finish his words, Mu-En chopped off his head with a knife, and blue blood flowed all over the ground. The accuser? Ronan? Looks like we can really reap a great harvest this time. Mu-En murmured. He didn't expect that there would be an unexpected surprise. The butcher knife of the Kree Empire was also called over by Rogue. Ignoring the virtual image in Rogue's hand, Mu-En walked towards Minerva. Honestly, you're so beautiful. This was Mu-En's first impression of this woman. Minerva lowered her head, looking shy. She was embarrassed by Mu-En's words. Laugh, the energy blade pierced through her chest. Mu-En hugged Minerva and smiled. You are a blue-skinned beauty like one of my former students. It's a pity that I don't like blue people. Minerva's pupils gradually dilated, and her eyes changed from surprise to regret. The trauma of inevitable death made her break free from the accusations, but now it would be meaningless even if she regained her sanity. She was going to follow Rog's footsteps. Leaving Minerva's body behind, Moon slowly walked out of the laboratory. Fury and the others had already run outside the laboratory, and even Carol, who was venting her abundant power, hid outside the laboratory. Walking in the spaceship, Moon saw several Kree bodies lying on the ground. Where did they go? Moon didn't see anyone along the way, as if all life on the spaceship had disappeared. When they arrived at the cabin where they landed, it became crowded with a large number of Skrulls gathered here, and Carol and the others were looking at the gate warily. Stop! A beam of light shot out from Carol's hand and landed next to Moon. Who are you? Where are Roger and the others? Where is Moon? They had not seen Moon transformed into the echo of the void yet, and were very wary of him. There's no time, Carol. Moon walked away while transforming from the void reverberation back into human form. Do you know Ronan the Accuser? He was called by Rog. Moon's change surprised everyone, and his words made all the Skrulls tremble. They knew exactly who Ronan the Accuser was. As long as they believed there were Skrulls on a planet, this madman would directly attack and destroy the entire planet. Let's go have some fun with Ronan. This was what Moon said to Carol. Although Carol's current strength is only slightly stronger than Rogue, this guy has an ability that Moon's armor does not have. That is flying, or flying across the universe. Moon was still a little envious of Carol's flying ability. After all, his armor did not have the ability to fly across the universe. As he was speaking, the space outside the spaceship began to flicker continuously, and one spaceship after another appeared around the cruiser. Looks like they've arrived, let's go. Moon transformed into the void reverberation again and walked into space with Carol. Carol was surrounded by energy, and Moon grabbed her arm and flew towards the spaceships with her. Fire! Your weapons! Looking at the Imperial cruiser, Ronan gave the order to attack. The weapon systems of each spacecraft were turned on one after another, and huge missiles with green tail flames shot towards Marwell's laboratory. Chapter 45. Defeat Ronan. Those flying missiles are huge, and once they fall, Marwell's laboratory will be completely destroyed. Facing these missiles, the energy in Moon's body began to condense, and the grasp of the void was instantly activated. Large pieces of void tendrils condensed together and turned into balls that floated around Moon. Boom, 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 the sphere released beams of void energy, shooting towards the missiles. His hands did not stop either. He raised his hand and pointed at the missile coming from the front. Denial was activated instantly. A beam of void light shot out from his fingertips, instantly detonating the missile. The exploding missile detonated the missiles behind it, causing flowers of fire to bloom in space. Carol flew at high speed with Moon, and after throwing Moon onto the main ship, he flew towards a spaceship that was still launching missiles. Is this the spaceship of Ronan the Accuser? Looking around, Moon shook his head and said, it feels not much different from Marvell's laboratory. Apart from being equipped with a large number of weapons, this spaceship cannot be compared with Marwell's cruiser in terms of appearance or size. Go play with that Ronan guy. With the tiger on his shoulders, Moon strode on the spaceship. Not far away, a team of fully armed Kree soldiers appeared. Hi! Good morning! Moon greeted a few soldiers, and before they could open fire, the tiger in his hand sprayed out countless shrapnel. The tiger that was fused with the amplitude crystal already had extremely strong destructive power, not to mention that he also released the secret word of truth on the tiger, covering the tiger's shrapnel with void energy. With 2 gunshots, the soldiers were instantly turned into dice by the shrapnel from the tiger. At the moment the soldier died, alarms sounded in the spacecraft. Begin the hunt. Loading bullets for the tiger, Moon continued to move forward, and whenever he encountered soldiers, he immediately pulled the gun and beat them all into dice. Along the way, many soldiers were dealt with by Moon, and he successfully arrived at the control room of the spacecraft. Boom! After the gunshots, the door of the control room was full of holes and was kicked open by Moon. When he reached for the ammunition on his body again, he found that all the ammunition of the tiger had been used up by him. Hanging the tiger on his back, Moon took out his double Rex pistols and looked at the guy standing at the front of the control room. Watching the sun rise, Ronan. As soon as he finished speaking, the Rex in his hand spewed out flames, and bullets wrapped in void energy shot and killed the crew members who were controlling the spacecraft. This indiscriminate massacre made Ronan instantly furious, and he swung the hammer in his hand at Moon. Faced with such an attack, energy surged throughout Moon's body, and the next moment, all the fragments in his body exploded instantly due to the activation of the super-dimensional purgatory, blasting Ronan away. However, Ronan is different from Rogue after all. Not only does he have a fleet that can destroy planets, his own combat power is also extremely powerful. The energy emitted by the sledgehammer in his hand condensed into an energy shield, blocking the attack from Muen's super-dimensional purgatory. So you're a sledgehammer wielder. Do you want me to find you a job? Muen, who transformed into an energy skeleton, became more agile, and the weapons in his hands also changed from Rex double pistols to energy blades. Dang, they were clearly two energy weapons, yet they made a crisp sound of metal collision. Between the hammer and the energy blade, the void energy was spreading towards the energy emitted by the hammer, forming a pure white light curtain. You actually massacred my Kree people. I will make you and the planet below pay the price. The energy on the hammer became more intense. He wanted to smash this energy skeleton and then destroy the planet C-53. Oh, you think you can do that? Muen stomped his feet and rushed towards the opponent. The energy blade in his hand once again spewed out a large amount of void energy, and continued to slash at Ronan. The sharp falcon sneak attack makes the energy blade slashing continuous, and the piercing claws make the energy blade stab Ronan from all directions. The fierce attack suppressed the energy of Ronan's hammer, and it dissipated in the attack attached with void energy. When his hammer hit the ground, it no longer had that extremely destructive impact, it just made a deep hole in the metal deck of the spacecraft. Oh, my god! You better be careful. If you destroy this spaceship, the Supreme Intelligence will definitely come out from the planet Hala and kick you hard in the ass with its leather shoes. Muen mocked Ronan viciously in his translator's voice, but his attacks did not stop. His surroundings were completely illuminated by the light of the energy blade. In Ronan's eyes, he looked like a falcon that was constantly attacking. Kill you! Ronan swung the hammer again, and powerful energy gushed out from the hammer, creating a crack on the spaceship, and the energy flowed towards Muen along the crack. The power of this hammer is indeed strong, but this attack is almost useless to Muen. He bent his legs and jumped up, waving the energy blade in Muen's hand, shooting out several sword energies. Seeing that Muen could actually shoot out sword energy, Ronan once again opened the energy shield in front of him, trying to block these sword energies. Unparalleled slash! With a roar from Muen, he swung the energy blade towards Ronan. The energy blade slammed heavily into Ronan's energy shield, piercing through the already shattered shield. The remaining sword energy left scars on Ronan's body. Blue blood oozed from the wound, which made Ronan a little unbelievable. Even though he possessed a universal weapon, he was no match for the skeleton in front of him. At this time, Carol also flew to the front of the spaceship. She had destroyed another spaceship, and now she had to deal with Ronan, the accuser of the Kree Empire. Seeing Carol radiating energy, Ronan slowly took a few steps back, and the universal weapon released energy to wrap him up. Humph, you are awesome, but the weapons of the Kree Empire will eventually return to the Kree Empire. As soon as he finished speaking, his body disappeared in the energy of the universal weapon, and then the spaceships in the universe flashed in the light and disappeared from the solar system. Run away now! Muen raised his eyebrows. Wasn't it said that Ronan was a planet-destroying warmonger? Why did he run away after seeing Carol? Although he didn't understand what the other party was thinking, Muen had no other choice. After all, the other party had already escaped. The universe was so big, how could he know where the other party had gone? He couldn't run to Hala Star to hunt down the other party, right? Although he really wanted to make the Supreme Wisdom into an intelligence center, such a thing could not be accomplished overnight. Going to Hala Star now would be pure suicide. Forget it, at least I got a spaceship. This spaceship is great. If you want to travel in the universe in the future, this spaceship can be used as a means of transportation. After signaling to Carol outside the window, he soon returned to Marvel's cruiser. Now, everything is over. Moon looked around. Where are the bodies of the Kree? Their equipment is still very good. They are still in the lab. Fury held Gugu and looked at Moon, who had returned to normal, curiously. You are really not an alien. It was not because of his curiosity, but because of the shock brought by Moon's transformation. He was much more powerful than these Skrulls. In just a moment, he turned from a human into an energy skeleton wrapped in fragments. Chapter 46. Great Harvest. Of course I'm not an alien. Muen glanced at the guy, turned and walked towards the laboratory, where those guys' equipment were waiting for him. After taking off all the Kree equipment, Moon looked at Fury again. By the way, this is a relatively safe place. You and I will bring a few people up here later. This is space outside the Earth. There is no trace of Hydra, so Howard and his wife don't have to stay in the underground space all the time. It is good. Fury was a little confused. Who did Moon want to take him to meet? After Moon packed all the equipment, he boarded the plane with everyone else and headed for Earth. As the leader of the Skrulls, Talos and his family also boarded the spaceship. They wanted to fight for a piece of land where they could live. Moon had no objection to the Skrulls' request, but just took some energy weapons from them. After seeing these equipments, Fury also became interested. These weapons have destructive power far exceeding that of Earth's weapons. If his agents could be armed, they would be able to fight even if they encountered the problem of aliens again. However, he did not say it on the plane. Instead, he planned to find a time to have a good talk with Talos. Without the sense of urgency brought by the enemy, the plane everyone was on slowly flew into the Earth and landed smoothly at Rambo's house. Finally, I'm back. Fury got off the plane, stretched, and said with his hands on his hips, "It turns out that I feel more at ease on Earth." Stop sighing. Muen's voice rang in his ears, "Come with me to pick up a few people now." Muen did not get off the plane. Instead, he sat directly in the driver's seat after Rambo and others got off the plane. This plane is just right for transporting those things, and it can also bring Howard and his wife over. He will not give up such an easy means of transportation that kills two birds with one stone. Seeing that Muen said so, Fury had no choice but to get back on the plane and sat on the plane holding Gugu. "Who are you taking me to meet?" he still asked. Muen said when he was in space that he would bring a few people up, but he still hasn't said who those people are. According to his understanding of Moon's information, the people who were connected to Moon, besides the late Howard and his wife, were Tony Stark of Stark Industries and his bodyguard Happy, as well as Bucky who managed Howard's farm. Are we going to take Bucky into space? Thinking about it this way, Fury felt that there was no problem. He knew clearly that Hydra existed. After all, the death of the Howards was caused by the attack of Hydra, and Bucky had been brainwashed by Hydra and became Hydra's killing weapon. Thinking this in my mind, I flew towards Muen's farm in the plane piloted by Muen. Soon, they landed at Howard's farm. After seeing the plane suddenly landed on the farm, Bucky walked over with a shotgun. "Hey! Don't be so nervous." After opening the plane cabin, he looked at Bucky Moon who was holding up a shotgun and smiled. This guy has always been so vigilant, always on guard against Hydra. Seeing Moon getting off the plane, Bucky breathed a sigh of relief. He put away his shotgun and looked inside the cabin curiously. "Didn't you go to look for that female pilot? Why are you back in a plane? Did you rob a military base? We'll talk about this later." Muen came down from the plane carrying a few boxes, and Fury followed him holding Gugu. "Let's send these things to the laboratory first." Bucky looked suspiciously at Fury who was holding Gugu, picked up 2 boxes, and walked towards the house. "Who is this guy? Could he be from Hydra?" Bucky asked. "I'm an agent. You can call me Fury. You can rest assured that I'm definitely not Hydra." Fury took over the conversation and introduced himself. "Moon and I just came back from space. He said he wanted to take me to pick up a few people." As soon as these words came out, Bucky immediately understood what Moon meant. He was planning to let Howard and his wife leave the underground space. This also means that Muen has confirmed that this guy is not Hydra. He was clear about Muen's methods, the method that could read memories, and could easily view all of a person's memories, even if those memories had been forgotten by that person. Walking into the room, Moon put the box on the floor and turned to look at Fury. "You're going to see some special situations next, so to make sure nothing goes wrong, I have to check your memory." Without waiting for Fury to react, he raised his hand and pressed it on the guy's forehead. The power of the void spread and Muen used the power of transmission. Just like in the movie, this guy has nothing to do with Hydra, but there is an interesting guy in his memory. Is this Frank the Punisher? I didn't expect these two guys to have such a good relationship. Looking at Fury's memory, Muen couldn't help but sigh. After releasing the telepathy, Fury returned to normal. He looked at Muen in confusion, not knowing what had happened. "Don't just stand there, they are still waiting downstairs." After that, they opened the bookshelf in Howard's study, and the 3 of them got on the elevator behind the bookshelf and continued to go deeper underground. There is actually this thing under Mr. Howard's farm. But who could be the person underneath? Fury asked. You'll know in a moment. Mu-En replied. Hey, after the elevator made a ding sound, the elevator door slowly opened, and Fury was stunned by the two people on the other side of the elevator door. Mr. Howard, Ms. Maria. Aren't these two dead? Especially Howard, he saw with his own eyes how Howard was sent to the grave and buried. How come he is alive now? Compared to Fury's surprise, Moon was very calm. He opened several boxes and showed the contents to Howard. Finally back. These are the combat uniforms of the Kree, these are the weapons of the Skrulls, and this. Moon took out a blue cosmic cube and shook it. This is the cosmic cube that Ma-Vel uses to make infinite energy. Howard was surprised to see what Mu-En took out. He didn't expect that Mu-En would gain so much from his trip. But he was puzzled by Fury, whom Mu-En brought back. What's the situation with the person next to you? The news of his fake death must not be spread, but why did Mu-En bring this strange guy here? You mean Fury? He is the next director to replace Pierce. Moon smiled and continued, do you know what's the most interesting thing? Pierce didn't choose his confidant, but chose Fury as the next director. Hydra chose an outsider as the director, ha! Moon's sarcastic smile made Howard understand that Fury was not a Hydra member, which meant that this guy could be trusted. Fury was confused. Is Mr. Pierce a Hydra? Their biggest enemy is actually their former director. He really couldn't believe it, but after seeing the expressions of Howard and the others, he became hesitant again. Maybe there really was something wrong with Pierce. Thinking back to the tasks he had done before taking over as director, Fury felt even more heavy-hearted. He and Pierce were not very close, he just saved that guy's daughter, and based on just one rescue, he was recommended by Pierce to be the director. Now that I think about it, maybe that mission was Pierce's way of choosing the director, but what was his intention in doing so? Chapter 47. Transfer an Ancient One. The news that the Howards were still alive and that Pierce might be Hydra were deeply imprinted in Fury's mind. He could choose not to believe what Moon and Howard said, but he also began to doubt Pierce. No matter why Moon was sure that Pierce was Hydra, at least Fury was on guard against Pierce in his heart, even though the other party was the former director. No one cared about his inner thoughts. After Moon mentioned the cruiser in space, Howard made the same decision as Moon. He was going to Ma-Vel's laboratory, where he would conduct research and look for information about Hydra. It's very easy to leave the Earth, you just need to take the plane from Moon and the others, but Maria wants to talk to Tony. Since they faked their deaths, she has never seen Tony again. She still misses Tony very much. They had been dead for a long time, long enough for Tony to recover from his grief. However, Howard denied her request. Hydra is still hiding now. If Hydra discovers anything abnormal, it may bring danger to Tony. Under Howard's persuasion, Maria finally gave up, but Howard agreed to leave a videotape for Tony, which satisfied Maria's love for Tony. Compared with their actions, Moon-En's was obviously much simpler. After sorting out all the equipment, he looked at Howard. I won't give you combat uniforms or anything like that. There's a Kree combat ship floating in space. There are many bodies of Kree soldiers there. You can study their equipment. And I hope you can use that ship as a base to study all of the ship's systems and build a small spaceship that can be piloted by one person. He was very satisfied with the ship that Ronan was on. Although it had some damage due to his battle with Ronan, the ship was at least intact. The only drawback was that too many people were needed to drive the spaceship. Let Howard take charge of it. Maybe in the future he will be able to travel through the universe on a new type of spaceship built by Howard. Howard was shocked when he heard Moon's words, and Fury on the side also opened his mouth slightly. You really can order an old man like me around? Howard laughed. He didn't expect Moon to capture a spaceship. But a combat ship does arouse my interest. Can I be included? Fury leaned over and asked, I want to join this plan too. He has already seen the Kree's individual combat equipment, and now there is also a combat ship. Any weapon on it can greatly promote the development of Earth's technology. Of course, not. Mu-En glanced at the guy. Just because you are not Hydra doesn't mean that the people around you are not Hydra. I don't have time to do a lie detector test on you. Besides, you should master the Skrull technology first. The Skrull technology fell into Fury's hands, and unless he did not conduct research on it, it would definitely be obtained by Hydra's people. It would be fine if Hydra obtained some simple technologies, but if Hydra obtained some powerful weapon technologies, that would be a problem. Muen's words made Fury realize that the situation in the bureau was urgent. Perhaps in Muen's eyes, their organization had been riddled with holes by Hydra. However, you can use the Kree technology yourself. It's a benefit of knowing Howard's secret. Fury nodded. He understood the threat of Hydra. Only letting him use the Kree technology meant that he would be safer from the threat of Hydra. In the future, he would have to carefully screen everyone and build a team that truly belonged to him. Speaking of which, the new guy is pretty good. Let's investigate his identity. If there's no problem, I'll develop him into my first subordinate. Fury thought to himself, since Hydra is parasitic in the organization, doesn't that mean I can use them to deal with some guys who are inconvenient to take action myself? They are all enemies anyway, so not only can I help him solve some problems, but I might also be able to help him find some parasites among them. After seeing off Howard and his wife, Muen stayed in the laboratory and continued to extract the essence of I. The Kree's combat uniforms were extracted by him into waste, and he also obtained 3 I essences. Together with the one he extracted in the past, he already had 4 I essences in his hands, which was enough for him to create a new battle armor. But Muen did not choose to create a new armor, but began to extract the power of the cosmic cube. The void energy and the power of the cosmic cube merged with each other, and a blue I essence condensed faintly in his hand. Can you please stop? A calm voice appeared behind Muen, which stunned him. There should be no one else in this underground space except him. Turning around and looking, the space behind him was distorted like a kaleidoscope, and in the center of the kaleidoscope stood a bald woman in a yellow robe. You are. Looking at the familiar makeup, Muen quickly responded, the Supreme Sorcerer of Kamartaj. Although he had never seen the person behind him, he remembered his outfit clearly. Isn't this guy Ancient One? This is an existence that can compete with the dimensional demon. But why did she come to me instead of looking for trouble with Dormammu? Looking at Guyi who appeared behind him, Muen fell into deep thought. It seems that my name has spread far in various dimensions. Ancient One smiled and walked out of the mirror space. If you hadn't used the cosmic cube, I really wouldn't have been able to find you. The Sorcerer Supreme came to me, didn't he just want to stop me from using the cosmic cube? Logically, this person shouldn't be so idle as to care how the cosmic cube is used. If she really had such a desire, she should have taken action to deal with the Red Skull 50 years ago. It has nothing to do with the cosmic cube. I came to find you only because you don't belong to this world. She had already noticed it when Moon appeared on Earth 6 years ago, but she had never found the source of the extra-dimensional power. If it weren't for Muen extracting the power of the cosmic cube and emitting waves of void dimension, she would never have found this place. So you are here to drive me back? Muen asked, may I ask if I destroyed the Earth or swallowed up this dimension? Although he wasn't from this world, he didn't do anything heinous. That's why I didn't attack you, right? Guyi smiled, came to the side and sat down to look at Muen. The power emanating from the dimension you control is the most chaotic I have ever seen. It seems that all the rules no longer apply in front of your power, but you are not as distorted as your power. This chaotic power was the most disordered she had ever seen. Even Dormammu's dark dimension seemed orderly in front of Moon's power. The one who possessed such chaotic power turned out to be Muen, a guy who seemed extremely rational. This aroused Guyi's interest. It was the first time she had seen such a strange controller of the dimension. Chapter 48, The Transaction with Ancient One. Disorder, chaos, and depravity, any life infected by that energy will fall into madness. This was the thought that came to Guyi's mind after seeing the void energy emitted by Muen. But Muen was different from what she imagined. This dimensional controller, who should have been even crazier than Dormammu, was not affected by that special dimension. So, you just wanted to see me. As he said this, Muen planned to continue the extraction. The endless energy of the cosmic cube would allow him to extract countless I essences. Not entirely. I want to make a deal with you. Transaction. Muen looked up at Guyi. Do you think I can help you? Who is Ancient One? He is the one who blocks the big boss of the dark dimension alone. With his current strength, how can he help the other party? However, Guyi smiled slightly, looking at the I essence that was faintly taking shape in Muen's hand and said, your power can indeed help me. What you have in your hand now is the product of the power between the two dimensions. I can use it to connect to your dimension. This is what she wanted to trade. She could use the essence of I as a bridge to borrow void energy from the void dimension to deal with some special situations. Of course, she chose to trade with him because she saw that Muin was rational. If Muin was the same as Dormammu, she would not be as polite as she is now. After extracting the first I essence from the cosmic cube, Muin looked at the other party holding the I essence. What you want to trade is the I essence. Then what do you use to trade? Although he can extract the essence of I, the other party will always have to pay a sufficient price. Guyi was well prepared for Muin's question. A spark flashed and a thick book appeared in her hand. In addition to allowing you to stay permanently on the earth, there is also my collection, which records many spells. She planned to trade her collection of spells and her permanent residence on earth with Muin in exchange for the I essence in Muin's hands. This deal really made Muin excited. First of all, the wizards residing on earth cannot avoid camartage. Secondly, the quality of the spells collected by Ancient One is naturally not low. He may be able to get inspiration from the above spells and use the power of the void more skillfully. And he only paid an I essence and lent the void energy to Ancient One. After pondering for a moment, Muin agreed to Guyi's deal. You can trade, but I suggest you don't use void energy lightly. Of course. Ancient One nodded gently. I know very well how dangerous your void energy is. The reason for making a deal with Muin was just to be on the safe side. After all, not every dimensional demon is like Muin. Most of the dimensional demons, like Dormammu, covet the earth. He handed the essence of I to Guyi, and Muin took Guyi's dimension spell book. I hope your spell won't make me regret it. Open the cover of the book, and spells appear on the pages. Is this, the Book of Vishanti? All the spells in this book started with Vishanti, which made him feel confused because he clearly did not see any signature in this book. Haha, this is just a rubbing of the Book of Vishanti. Ancient One smiled. I think white magic is more suitable for you. You can learn how to master the power of dimensions from it. As the controller of the dimension, it is impossible for Muin to use the power of Vishanti to cast spells. After all, no dimensional demon would lend his power to another dimensional demon. However, Muin can learn the casting methods in the spell book and develop his own dimensional magic. After hearing Ancient One's explanation, Muin nodded in understanding. The Book of Vishanti was of great significance to Ancient One and even Camartage. She would never trade with the Book of Vishanti. According to the method of casting spells in the spell book, Muin's fingertips lit up slightly, and as he moved his hands, a square magic circle appeared in his hands. This was the basis of Vishanti's spell casting, and now he was using this foundation to cast this basic spell. However, unlike the orange-red energy released by Ancient One, the magic circle he released was white and blue, emitting tiny void fluctuations. The next moment, ripples suddenly appeared in the void dimension, and some knowledge appeared in Muin's mind. Void School. Feeling the knowledge from the void dimension, Muin froze in place. I didn't expect the specialization in the game to appear. There are 5 schools of the void, corresponding to the 5 elements, representing 5 different directions, and each has its own special power. Now, even without the battle armor, I can exert a stronger power. These schools allow him to unleash the power of the void even more powerfully, and if he masters all of them, he might be even stronger than his transformed armor. After completing the transaction, Ancient One left the address of Camartage and turned and walked into the portal. After mastering several spells, Muin began to extract the cosmic cube. At first, the extraction went smoothly, but when he extracted the 7th one, no matter how much energy he condensed, he could not continue to extract the essence of I. Why can't it be extracted? Muin and his group looked at the energy surrounding their hands. Suddenly, information came from the void dimension again. It turns out that the void dimension has been saturated with the energy of the cosmic cube and can no longer fuse the energy of the cosmic cube. There is an upper limit to the extraction of I essence. For the same kind of energy, only 7 I essences can be extracted at most, and the energy required for extraction will continue to increase. The energy required to extract the 7th I essence is 7 times the energy required to extract the 1st I essence. This is also the reason why only 3 I essences were extracted when the equipment of the Kree and Skrulls were extracted before. And this was like a bolt from the blue for Muin. He also wanted to use the cosmic cube to extract a large amount of I essence and then create all the armors, but now it seems impossible. Now he has 10 I essences in his hand, which can be used to create 2 sets of armor. He needs to think carefully about what kind of armor to create. What to shape? There are so many armors, and their functions are different, which makes Mu-En dizzy and he doesn't know what kind of armor to make. After pondering for a long time, he finally made a decision. Let's build Limbo. It's a good opportunity to see if we can find a world of mutants. Ling Baihu does not have the destructive power of other armors, but it possesses powers that other armors do not have. This armor can travel freely in different planes. And Mu-En can use the power of Limbo Prison to travel to other worlds through the void dimension. Maybe she can return to the mutant world and meet Charles and others. After determining the armor that needed to be shaped, Mu-En began to communicate with the power of the Eye-Essence, and the 4 Eye-Essences gradually melted in his hands. Soon, his entire body was enveloped by the energy formed by Ice Essence, leaving only a human form. As time goes by, the light released by the energy of Eye-Essence becomes brighter and brighter. Finally, at the moment of a cracking sound, a warrior wearing a black top hat and a suit appeared in the underground space, looking like an elegant gentleman. Chapter 49. New World. Mu-En transformed into Ling Baihu and carefully felt the power brought by this armor. He could clearly feel that the different powers in this world, some came from the earth itself, and some came from other dimensions. No wonder Guyi is so vigilant. If it were me, I would probably be even more vigilant than her. There are too many forces on earth, and forces of different dimensions are looming around the earth. He could clearly feel that there were whirlpools of different dimensions surrounding the earth, and those dimensions could be opened at any time. This also made Mu-En admire Guyi in his heart. With so many dimensions surrounding the earth, all the pressure was on her alone, but she could still maintain such a calm state of mind. It had to be said that her state of mind was really good. A light flashed across his body, and Ling Baihu gradually disappeared, turning back into Mu-En himself. The spirit book prison has been shaped. As for the second set of armor, I need to think carefully about it. Although he still had 6 Eye-Essences, he did not choose to shape them immediately. He planned to keep the opportunity to shape the armor and shape it when needed. After all, he didn't have much Eye-Essence in his hands, so he could only choose to leave a chance for himself. After cleaning up the underground space, Mu-En brought the cosmic cube to Marvel's laboratory. The cosmic cube was no longer of any use to him, so it would be better to hand it over to Howard for research. I'll leave this thing to you. After handing the cosmic cube to Howard, Moon looked at Bucky and said, I'm going on a long trip and may not be able to come back in a short time. I'll leave my farm to you. When he was shaping the Soul Book Prison, he had thought about looking for Charles and the others. Now that the Soul Book Prison was completed, he naturally had to prepare to set off. But he didn't know how long it would take to go back and forth, so he could only notify everyone and ask Bucky to help him take care of the farm. But Howard and the others didn't think so. They just thought that Moon had found the location of Hydra. Did you find Hydra's base again? Bucky was curious. How is that possible? Mu-En rolled his eyes at Bucky and replied, I'm going to visit my old friends. They live a bit far away. Live far away, this made Bucky and Howard a little puzzled. Shouldn't Moon's friends live on Earth? No matter how far you go, you shouldn't say such things, right? Faced with the puzzled looks of several people, Mu-En did not answer, but walked to the side, releasing blue light from his body as he walked. Soon he changed his appearance in front of everyone, becoming a gentleman wearing a top hat. Let's go. After waving goodbye to everyone, Mu-En was surrounded by void energy. He just waved his hand and a crack in the void opened up. His figure gradually disappeared from everyone's sight along with the crack in the void. This guy can actually transform. Bucky frowned and looked at the place where Mu-En disappeared. Mu-En's appearance just now did not look like a human. Howard, did you know that Mu-En can transform? I don't know. Howard shook his head. When I first saw him, he was in human form. Thinking back to the changes that Mu-En had just undergone, Howard's doubts that had been buried in his heart for a long time were finally resolved. He originally thought that Moon used the Kree's weapons to destroy the spaceship's engine, but now it seems that Moon destroyed the spaceship's engine after transforming. I didn't expect he could transform into other forms. Fury came closer. He still remembered Moon's energy skeleton form, but now Moon had changed into another appearance. He no longer looked like a skeleton, but like an elegant gentleman. Have you seen Mu-En's transformation? They both looked at him at the same time. I have seen him. Before, he turned into an energy skeleton and fought with those Kree people. Fury nodded. Many Skrulls had seen that energy skeleton. Moon transformed into that form and charged into the battleship. Compared to the conversation between Howard and others, Mu-En was confused. After he passed through the void rift and returned to the void dimension, he was shocked by the world connected to the void dimension. The void dimension connected countless worlds, so many that it made people's scalp numb. This. Oh my god! If we want to find it back, how long will it take to find it? If Ling Biao hadn't recorded the coordinates of leaving the Avengers world, he would have just randomly entered a world. However, so many worlds still made him fall into deep thought. How about, just go into any random place? Anyway, I've already recorded the coordinates of the Avengers world, so I won't be afraid of not finding the way back. This was the only thing he could do now. His chances of returning to the mutant world were slim, but as long as he entered the world, it would always be possible for him to go back. Well, let's do it. I hope I'll have better luck and can go back directly. After saying that, he chose a world, opened the void rift and rushed in. On the other side of the void rift was a farm. Looking at the vast farm under the night sky, Mu-En smiled. It seems that the farm and I have a connection. I didn't expect to appear in a farm. As he was speaking, he saw something with thick smoke falling from the sky and flying straight towards him at a high speed. Shit! It must be really uncomfortable to be hit by something this big. As he spoke, Mu-En stepped on the ground, and his whole body was instantly wrapped in the rift energy, allowing him to enter the rift plane parallel to the material plane. The thing that fell from the sky went straight through his body and smashed heavily into the farmland behind him. Boom! This! Someone's missile missed the target, and it was a dud. Mu-En complained. Looking at the thing that hit the farmland behind him, Mu-En suddenly became curious. This thing didn't look like a missile. A ray of light flashed across his body, and the Ling Biao disappeared with the light. Let's see what this is. As he was walking around this streamlined thing, the roar of a pickup truck engine suddenly sounded in the distance. He had been driving pickup trucks for several years and he would never forget this sound. It looks like the farmer has arrived. The farm was smashed into something, and no farmer would turn a blind eye to it, let alone the damage caused by this thing. Sure enough, a pickup truck appeared in front of him soon. Wow, this pickup truck must be from the 1970s, right? Looking at the pickup truck, Mu-En couldn't help but complain. Having lived in the Avengers world for so long, he definitely knows a lot about pickup trucks. This car definitely cannot be from the 1990s. Even in the 1980s, there were very few pickup trucks of this outdated model. A couple got out of the car. After seeing Mu-En, they were obviously taken aback. One of the men raised his shotgun and asked, "Who are you? Why are you at my farm? And what's that thing behind you?" "Relax, I'm not a bad person." Mu-En spread his hands and said, "Why am I at your farm? It's simple. I came here to chase this thing. As for what it is, I don't know either." Seeing that Mu-En was not afraid at all, the man frowned. The identity of a person who turned a blind eye to weapons could not be simple. Just as he was about to speak, something behind Mu-En suddenly made an exhaust sound. "It looks like this thing is open. How about we take a look at what this thing is?" Chapter 50. Superman Baby. Mu-En turned around and walked towards the thing behind him. What on earth could such a big thing be? The couple still looked at Mu-En with vigilance. After coming to Mu-En, they were shocked by the situation inside the thing. There turned out to be a baby inside, but whose child is this? Even the cradle is such a sophisticated instrument. After seeing the baby, the woman's maternal instinct was awakened, and she used her code to take the baby out of the big machine. "You said you were chasing this big machine. Could this be your child?" the man asked, looking at the baby in his wife's arms. Mu-En was the only one who appeared on his farm, which made it hard not to think of the relationship between him and the baby. I have nothing to do with this little guy, and although it's hard to believe, he is not human." After seeing the S-shaped logo on the spacecraft, he already understood the true identity of this little guy. This seemingly fragile baby would be the famous Superman of the future. And he also understood what kind of world he had come to. Aren't there too many worlds connected to the void dimension? Although he had prepared himself for the possibility of going to the wrong world in the void dimension, he really didn't expect that he would come to this world and see the baby version of Superman with his own eyes. The couple did not believe everything Mu-En said. They could see very clearly that this little guy was a normal human being. "It seems you don't believe it." Mu-En smiled and shrugged. "If it were me, I wouldn't believe it either." He casually pulled out a short black stick that looked like a key from the spaceship. There was also an S-shaped logo printed on it. There should be many things in this baby aircraft that are not from Earth. If you don't believe me, you can take some of the fragments and send them for testing. This is a spacecraft from Krypton, and it definitely contains many elements that are not available on Earth. Muen's words made the couple doubtful. He was right. As long as they sent it for testing, they would be able to find the substance on the aircraft. There was no need for him to lie to them. The man put away his shotgun, stared at Muen and said, "You know so much, do you know his origins?" "I know a little bit." Patting the aircraft, Muen continued, "The technology here is beyond the control of the current Earth. Even if all the scientists in the world were to come together, they would not be able to create this kind of aircraft. The most important point is, if this was invented by a certain country, then these technologies should be used in the military. Why would they be used specifically on a baby and then launch the baby?" The couple agreed with this. Although they did not understand the technology behind it, they knew that such a sophisticated device could not be used as a baby cradle. Retrieving the shotgun, the man introduced himself. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Jonathan and this is my wife, Martha." Although he was not sure about Muen's identity, he thought that there should be no problem with Muen, and looking at the other party's fearless expression, the shotgun in the other party's hand should not pose any threat to him. "Okay, Jonathan, you can just call me Muen." Then he pointed at the aircraft and asked, "What are you going to do with this thing? It's night now, and no one will notice such a large aircraft, but after daybreak, this thing will be very eye-catching. Let's use the pickup truck to pull us back to the warehouse." "It's not far from here anyway," said Jonathan. In the blink of an eye, Muen had been living in Jonathan's house for several months. Without legal status, he could only stay on the farm and take care of the farm with Jonathan every day, while Martha took care of their adopted son Clark. Strangely enough, after this child was taken out of the aircraft, his health has been very poor and he would get a serious illness if he wasn't careful. Combined with the results of the spacecraft fragments sent by Jonathan for testing, the couple became more certain about Clark's alien identity. Fortunately, Clark is not some strange creature. Apart from his different identity, he looks exactly like a human baby. This allows Jonathan and Martha to take care of Clark as if he were their own son, making up for their regret of not having children. That day, Moon and Jonathan were chopping wood in the yard, and the sharp axe chopped down hard on the half-meter-thick tree stump. Click! The tree stump was instantly split into two, and the two men chatted while chopping wood. "I've asked someone to get your ID for you, but are you really not planning to stay on the farm for a while?" "No." Muen raised the axe and split the tree stump. "I plan to go somewhere else. It's so boring to stay here all the time." He planned to visit several superhero cities. In addition to sightseeing, he also planned to look for some items that could be extracted. He couldn't just do nothing and wait for the funds to run out, right? He also heard some news from some old cowboys. Some of their elders had participated in World War I and were said to have seen a woman who seemed to have walked out of a myth. Although these old cowboys only told it as a legend, Muen knew very well that it was not a legend but a real thing. That woman was the daughter of Zeus, the Amazon warrior from Paradise Island, and the demigod Wonder Woman Diana. However, what Muen was interested in was not the other party's identity, but the weapons and equipment in her hands. Those are all so-called divine artifacts. If they are extracted, the essence of I in his hands will be replenished, and he can start considering making new armor. However, like these old cowboys, Muen didn't know where Diana was. He only knew that she seemed to be doing some archaeological work. Seeing that Muen had made up his mind, Jonathan stopped trying to persuade him. Even though he and Muen had become good friends, he couldn't restrict the other's freedom. "Well, when are you planning on leaving?" "Next month, starting from the metropolis." Muen replied. Jonathan's farm is about to be harvested, and he can make a lot of money by harvesting the crops, which can be used as his travel expenses. Then the two of them started talking about all sorts of things, and soon they had chopped all the firewood and piled it up to fill the entire warehouse. A month passed quickly, and after helping Jonathan harvest the crops on the farm, Muen finally set off with his salary. "Goodbye." Muen waved goodbye to Jonathan and his wife. After seeing the thin Clark in Martha's arms, he smiled and said, "I'll give you a suggestion. Take him out to bask in the sun more often when you have time. This little guy is too thin and has not yet adapted to the environment on Earth." The best way now is to let him get more sun and absorb solar radiation to strengthen his physique. Don't worry, the next time you see him, he will definitely be a strong kid. Chapter 51. Gotham. After saying goodbye to Jonathan and his wife, Moon took a car to the metropolis. Although Superman will become the protector of Metropolis in the future, Clark is just a baby now, and there are no supervillains destroying Metropolis. Looking at this peaceful city, no one could have imagined that a powerful guardian would emerge from here in the future. Moon spent a day strolling around the Metropolis. After seeing the Daily Planet building and the high-rise buildings of Lex Corporation, he boarded a bus and headed for other cities. Time passed quickly, and Moon traveled through many cities. Every time he arrived in a city, he would go to the museum to look for traces of the artifact. But every time I returned disappointed. The things displayed in the museums in these cities were, without exception, all ordinary objects, without the slightest energy. Of course, he also visited many special cities during his journey, such as Star City where there is no green arrow, Blue Valley where no one picks up anything, Central City where the time restart button has not yet been born, and so on. He had spent more than half a year traveling through the cities where future superheroes would be born, and now he was sitting on a transport truck leaving Bloodhaven and heading to Gotham, the hometown of a certain Bat. I heard that the police in Gotham are very corrupt and often blackmail others. Is that true? Moon leaned back in his seat and chatted with the driver. That's true. Although I don't know why you want to go to Gotham, I'll give you a piece of advice. Don't mess with anyone in Gotham, especially Mr. Falcone's people. The Falcone family is the largest mafia family in Gotham City, so powerful that even the Gotham City Police Department has to give them a wide berth. It seems that Gotham is more chaotic than I heard. Moon smiled. He went to Gotham not just for a visit, but for something that might exist in Gotham. After sending Moon to the westward bridge, the transport vehicle drove in another direction, and Moon walked into the gloomy city. I didn't expect there are so many Gothic buildings in Gotham. No wonder Bruce dressed himself up as a bat. Looking at the buildings in the city, Moon couldn't help but complain. These buildings may not look like anything special during the day, but at night, coupled with Gotham's cloudy weather, they look like vampires' lairs. Isn't the symbol of vampires a bat? This also made Moon somewhat suspicious. Was the reason why Gotham had such a high crime rate related to the depressing atmosphere brought about by these Gothic buildings? This atmosphere made people feel very depressed, which led to such a high crime rate. But this has nothing to do with him, he is not a savior. Walking on the streets of Gotham, I have to say that although the crime rate in Gotham is high, they all have a good appearance, and everyone keeps themselves very neat and tidy. Well, it's not as bad as I imagined. As he was speaking, a thin man came towards him. The moment he passed by Moon, his hand reached into Moon's pocket. If there weren't bugs like you, I'd probably have a better impression of Gotham. He grabbed the guy's arm and twisted it hard, then kicked him to the ground. He squatted down, stepped on his head, and said slowly, I don't know the rules of Gotham, but I think it shouldn't be a problem for me to teach you a lesson, right? Moon took out a sharp kunai from his waist and it appeared in his hand, shining with metallic luster under the night light. Swish, snort as Moon moved, the kunai nailed into the guy's palm and blood gushed out. The severe pain made the guy scream, but in response, the people around him looked on coldly. Next time I catch you, it won't be so easy. After saying that, he pulled out his kunai and wiped it on the guy, then stepped on the guy's bleeding palm and got up and left. This guy was just a petty thief, so he just gave him a lesson. After walking for a while, we passed a dark street when gunshots suddenly rang out. Bang! Bang! Is there anyone else on this road? A vendetta. The sound of gunfire indicated that someone was killed, and this aroused Moon's interest. He really liked to watch the excitement. As soon as I walked into the street, I met a panicked man who seemed to have something in his arms. Originally, Moon didn't intend to pay attention to this guy, but this guy seemed to be worried about something. After seeing Moon, he immediately took out his pistol and opened fire. Boom, the bullet spurted out from the muzzle, and the moment it hit Moon, there was a crisp ding sound. Robber! Looking at the holes on his clothes, Moon kicked him out fiercely. You ruined my clothes. Although the opponent was of strong physique, his body was completely unable to withstand Moon's kick, and he was kicked so hard that he couldn't get up. It's Gotham after all. We've only just arrived in the city and I've already encountered this twice. As he spoke, he straightened his clothes and took out the deformed bullet from the hole in his clothes. We don't have any grudges, right? He grabbed the guy's collar and walked deeper into the street. Or is killing innocent people Gotham style? When being held by Mu-En, this guy was still struggling, trying to break free from Mu-En's grip and escape from here. Mu-En did not let him off and inserted 2 kunai directly into his shoulder joints. Move it again and it will appear in your eyes. After waving the kunai in his hand in front of the other person, the guy dared not move anymore and let Mu-En carry him back to the murder scene. Back at the murder scene, 2 adults fell to the ground, with only a 10-year-old boy lying beside them in fear, shaking their bodies constantly. This situation seems a little familiar. When they walked over to the boy, they saw that both adults had been shot in the chest. Judging from the amount of blood they were bleeding, they must have died. Well, you killed him with 1 strike. You are quite professional. Then he threw the man next to the child. He killed your parents, right? Seeing the man with kunai stuck in his shoulder joints, the boy cried and beat the man with his hands. Mu-En picked up the wallet on the ground and took out a business card from it. Thomas Wayne. Looking at the boy who kept beating the man, Mu-En raised his eyebrows slightly. So it really was the Bat. Although he felt a little familiar just now, he can now confirm that this teenage boy is the most suspicious Batman in the future. Looking up, I saw a girl hiding on the external stairs with the same terrified look on her face. When she noticed Mu-En looking at her, the girl stood up and was about to leave. Call out! A white light flashed in front of the girl, and a sharp kunai was nailed to the wall in front of her, with half of the blade already embedded in the wall. Little girl, are you going to come down by yourself, or do you want me to catch you? Hearing Mu-En's threatening words, the girl was a little scared. Although she could move between tall buildings very easily, she was not sure if she could run faster than the flying knife. As a last resort, the girl had to come down the stairs, but she did not approach Mu-En but moved towards the pipe on the side. Are there many little thieves like you in Gotham? Chapter 52. Don't move, sir. You mean teenage homeless people? There are indeed quite a few in Gotham. Selina moved her body quietly. She was still a little afraid of this strange adult, Mu-En. Oh, robbery, shooting, cheating, it's really a classic Vice City. Mu-En smiled and shook his head. He flashed and pulled out a kunai from the wall, then appeared in front of Selina. You look pretty smart. Do you know any legends in Gotham? If I'm satisfied, I'll give you this kunai. Looking at the gleaming kunai in front of her, Selina took 2 steps back. She didn't see Mu-En's actions clearly just now. At this speed, even if she wanted to run, it would be impossible for her to escape from this strange adult. Selina simply stopped moving, glanced at the kunai in Mu-En's hand and whispered. Gotham legends? I do know one. Beware the Court of Owls, watching you wherever you go. Watching Gotham from the shadows, hiding in the low walls and attics. As he was speaking, the man who was being beaten by the little bat struggled to get up from the ground. Hold still, sir. Mu-En had a rex in his hand, and the black muzzle was pointing at the man's body. Although Mu-En was listening to Selina telling nursery rhymes, it did not mean that he was unable to perceive the situation around him. He knew the situation of the little bat and the man very clearly. But when the man saw that Mu-En didn't turn back, he didn't listen to Mu-En's advice at all, but went straight to grab the little bat Bruce. He planned to use this child as a threat and escape from here. Boom! Before he could touch Bruce, Rex fired a bullet from his gun. This bullet, strengthened by the amplitude crystal, was too much for even a fully armed Hydra soldier to withstand, let alone this man who was only wearing thick clothes. His arm was directly broken by the huge power of the bullet and flew a long distance. I told you not to move, sir. Glancing at the man wailing because of his broken arm, Mu-En looked at Selina again. Go on, what's next? After seeing the man with a broken arm, Selina swallowed and continued. He is with you in your house, and he is with you in your bed. Do not mention his name, or his claws will find your head. That's it, everyone in Gotham knows this nursery rhyme. Handing the kunai to the little thieving cat, Mu-En felt a slight joy in his heart. Sure enough, there were nursery rhymes about the Court of Owls circulating in Gotham, and if he could find the nests of these little birds, he might be able to find what he was looking for and begin extracting the essence of I. Well, not bad, I'm satisfied. Waving at the kitten, Mu-En came to the man's side and said, remember what I reminded you before? If you move around, this thing will pierce your eyes. Don't you understand, sir? You shot me and ruined my clothes. Do you think you can get away with it? As soon as he finished speaking, 2 kunao appeared in Muen's hands. Seeing the metallic kunao in Muen's hand, the man begged in a trembling voice. Let me go. Please, let me go. Muen smiled as he looked at Serena, who was about to leave, and said. Let you go? Is that the rule in Gotham? You little thief. No. No. Selena replied from a distance, in Gotham, anyone who did this is already dead. After that, he followed the balcony and stairs between the houses and climbed onto the roof, while Muen raised his eyebrows and looked at the man. You heard it too. There is no rule in Gotham that forgives those who want to kill you. As soon as he finished speaking, 2 kunao pierced into the man's eyes almost at the same time. Blood continued to flow out of his eyes, and the intense pain made the man wail miserably. Thank you. Bruce knelt beside his parents and sobbed softly. He was very grateful to Muen. It was because of Muen's appearance that the robber who killed his parents was caught. It was also Muen who used this method to torture the enemy who killed his parents. Nothing, should I notify the others now? Shortly after Muen took back the kunao, Alfred, the Wayne family's butler, rushed over. During his conversation with Bruce, he received devastating news that the man and woman of the Wayne family had met with an accident on their way back from a movie, leaving Bruce alone. When he arrived, Bruce and Moon were standing in front of a pool of blood, and not far from the Waynes, lay a man covered in blood. Master Bruce. Alfred hurried over after getting off the car. Alfred. Bruce looked at the butler who came over sadly, pointed at the man and said, Mom and Dad were killed by him. After seeing the bodies of the Wayne couple, and then looking at the man, Alfred closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and turned to look at Bruce. Be strong, Master Bruce, you still have me. The Wayne family still has heirs, and he is also the steward of the Wayne family. He must preserve the Wayne family's heritage. Yet. Bruce nodded and looked at Moon. It was this gentleman who caught him back. He's very capable. Bruce saw everything that Muen did. The man wanted to hold him hostage, but Muen shot him in the arm and even had 2 darts stuck into his eyes. Thank you for your help. Alfred walked over and extended his hand, saying, What's your name? Muen smiled and shook hands with the other party. He still admired this butler hero very much. Just call me Muen, Mr. Butler. Although Alfred does not have any superpowers, he is Batman's indispensable helper and even the only person Batman can fully trust. As they were talking, the Gotham police arrived. Although all the Gotham police were corrupt, some of them still had a conscience. What's more, the ones involved in this incident were members of the Wayne family, so they had to be cautious. When the police saw the Wayne couple lying on the ground, they all gasped. They were in big trouble. A policeman with a buzz cut came over and asked, What's wrong with this guy? After seeing the man who was crippled by Muen. He is the murderer. Bruce glared at the man angrily. Even though the man was about to go into shock due to excessive blood loss, this did not stop him from hating the man. He's the murderer? We can close the case, Gordon. An elderly policeman kicked the man and heard him still make a sound, saying, Whoever did this, what a great technique. I did it. Is there any problem? Muen looked at the 2 of them with a smile, raised his hand and pointed at the hole in his chest and said, See this hole? I was defending myself. Of course he knew who Gordon was. This policeman who sought justice in Gotham was the only light of Gotham. After checking on the man on the ground, Gordon stood up and shook his head. It's okay, Harvey is just kidding you. Even if he's killed, you'll be fine. He found a stack of money and a broken pearl necklace from the man. These were the property of the Waynes. Combined with the accusation of being the heir of the Wayne family, there would be no problem even if this guy was killed directly. Chapter 53. Wayne Manor. After handing the murderer over to Gordon, Moon received an invitation from Alfred and went to Wayne Manor. The young Bruce cannot fully bear all of this, and Moon, as the person who helps Bruce to get revenge, is a good support and can help Bruce recover from his grief. Muen readily agreed to such an invitation. Since he could live in a luxurious manner, why should he look for a hotel? I have to say that Bruce's superpower is indeed money. His manor is one of the best Muen has ever seen. The yard of the manor alone can be regarded as a park. And his house is even more quaint, like a castle. The manor gave him the feeling that it was more like the legendary vampire castle, a gothic castle with a bat. Looking at Bruce, who was being led by Alfred, Moon thought secretly in his heart. Why does he look more and more like a vampire? If he didn't know what this child would become in the future, he would have almost thought that Bruce's family were vampires. After returning home, Bruce became sad again. He thought about what had happened before and recalled his parents lying in a pool of blood. The death of Master Thomas and Lady Martha was a great blow to him. Looking at Bruce sitting on the bed and touching the photo, Alfred gently closed the door and talked to Moon beside him. The death of the Waynes was a major blow to the Wayne family and even affected the operation of the Wayne Group. Well, it can be seen that he is very smart. I believe that it won't be long before he can get over his sadness. As he spoke, Moon thought of Tony. After Howard and his wife passed away, that guy remained silent for a long time and never came to the farm again. Don't worry, he will come out, but you should collect all of their belongings and put them in other rooms, so that he won't be reminded of them all the time. Bruce is just a 10-year-old boy. Giving him a warm environment can help him get out of his sadness faster. Alfred was thoughtful. He felt that Moon's suggestion was good. Packing up the Wayne couple's things and putting them in an empty house might really help Master Bruce get out of his grief. After living in Wayne Manor for a while, Moon spent his time wandering around Wayne Manor and reading the Wayne family's collection of books. Apart from attending the Waynes' funeral, he never left the estate. But he did not give up trying. He kept searching in the manor. Unfortunately, he did not find anything with special powers in Wayne Manor. Although the manor was filled with antiques, they were all just ordinary things and meant nothing to him. That day, when he was reading the history of Gotham, Bruce suddenly ran over. I want to learn fighting from you. He has thought a lot these days. His parents are gone and can never be brought back, but perhaps he can inherit their legacy and make Gotham a better place. At least this kind of robbery and murder will not happen again in Gotham, and the lives of Gotham residents will become more stable. But he is still a child, and even if he speaks in the board meeting, those so-called directors will not care about his words. Therefore, he planned to exercise first to make himself stronger, so that at least the next time he encountered danger, he would not have to watch the criminals kill his parents like he did last time. Learn to fight? With me. Putting aside the history of Gotham, Moon raised his eyebrows and looked at the thin Bruce. You have a bean-sprout-like body, you should exercise more. Although he didn't mind teaching Bruce fighting skills, the other party's body was too weak, and it was not easy to master his fighting skills. Hearing Moon's answer, Bruce lowered his head in disappointment. But I can teach you how to play darts. The throwing technique of darts is a skill, and the strength of physical fitness only affects the lethality of darts. Really? Bruce looked up at Moon N with joy. He still remembered how powerful Moon N's darts were. Of course it's real. Moon N smiled and nodded, spinning a kunao around his finger. But you have to ask Ah Fu to prepare a set for you first. His kunao is too big for Bruce. If Bruce is allowed to practice with kunao, there is a high probability that Bruce will hurt himself. Bruce ran out excitedly, apparently asking Alfred to prepare darts. After sending Bruce away, Moon looked at Gotham's history again and found some interesting things in it. This Court of Owls is quite smart. It hides in the dark and secretly controls Gotham. Although Gotham is controlled by the so-called mafia families, the real controllers of Gotham are the powerful Wayne family and the Court of Owls. The Wayne family and the Court of Owls are like the light and darkness of Gotham, keeping Gotham firmly in their hands. Let's go out for a walk tonight. He had already looked at all the maps and history of Gotham, and his understanding of the Court of Owls had become more profound. He wanted to go out and try to see if he could find the claws of those little birds. He swung the kunao at his fingertips and occasionally flipped through the pages of Gotham's history, looking at what had happened in Gotham's history. As night fell, Moon said goodbye to Alfred and left Wayne Manor. Alfred, what is Moon going to do? Bruce stood in front of the window and looked at Moon's back. I'm sorry, Master Bruce, I don't know either. Alfred shook his head. Maybe Mr. Moon has something urgent to deal with. After all, he hasn't left the manor for some time. After leaving the manor, Moon walked straight towards the center of Gotham. His body gradually disappeared as he walked, turning into a ball of energy and passing through the sky of Gotham. Appearing on the roof of a tall building, Moon looked at the night view of Gotham below, looking for the owl flying through Gotham. It seems that the birds haven't taken any action yet. He didn't see any owls. Actually, if you think about it, if the Court of Owls' claws operations were too frequent, then the legend about the Court of Owls would not be just a horror nursery rhyme. Although he said so, Mu-en still planned to look around. What if he found those owl claws somewhere else? Walking between the skyscrapers of Gotham, he saw many things hidden in the darkness of Gotham. It has to be said that in this sinful city, fighting, drug-taking and robbery are very normal and the most common situations. It seems that everyone has become accustomed to this situation. Are there any philanthropists left in Gotham? Looking at the people distributing sandwiches to the homeless teenagers below, Mu-en, who was standing on the roof, became interested. He didn't think that such people would appear in Gotham. Sure enough, those adults had bad intentions. One woman took out a long needle from her collar and gave each of the young homeless men an injection while they were eating. Those teenage homeless people fell to the ground almost instantly. As expected, there is no philanthropist in Gotham, but isn't the effect of the ecstasy drug too strong? It was the first time he had seen this kind of drug that could knock people out immediately after it pricked them, without even giving them time to react. Hey, isn't this the little thief? Seeing Selina, Moon smiled and jumped off the roof. Chapter 54, The Needle and Arcsum. Hey! What are you doing? Seeing the children being knocked unconscious by the needle, the homeless man who was huddled nearby stood up and shouted at the traffickers. Bang! One of the human traffickers pulled out a pistol and was about to kill the homeless man. Suddenly, a dark shadow fell from the sky and pinned him to the ground. The muzzle of his gun tilted outward, and the bullet grazed the homeless man's clothes and hit his shack. The black shadow was Mu-en. He just wanted to say hello to the little thief and ask him something, but he didn't expect that this guy would appear under his feet and he stepped on him to the ground. The man's mouth was filled with blood because of the huge weight of Mu-en falling from a high altitude. It was obvious that his internal organs were damaged due to the heavy blow from the back. Hey, little thief cat, is this your friend? Stepping down from the man's back, Mu-en greeted Selina with a smile, and Selina's eyes lit up when she saw Mu-en. I guess so. Selina nodded and looked at the unconscious children and said, we heard that someone was distributing food. She shrugged again and spread her hands, saying, obviously, this is another trick used by the human traffickers. For homeless teenagers like them, although this situation is not encountered often, they have all heard of people using food to traffic homeless teenagers. Compared to how relaxed the two of them were, several human traffickers were a little dissatisfied. Are these two guys ignoring them? The woman pulled out the long needle from her collar and stabbed Mu-en with it. So you have been struggling to make ends meet? As Mu-en spoke, he grabbed the long needle in the woman's hand, twisted it back and stabbed it into the woman's body. In the blink of an eye, the woman's whole body went limp and she fell to the ground. Wow, is this the elephant's sleeping pill? The effect of this drug is so strong that even Mu-en was a little shocked. Is this definitely a drug and not an instant killing poison? Seeing the woman fall to the ground, the other two human traffickers also rushed over, but these two guys were just stronger and had no deterrent power at all. They were knocked down by Mu-en with 3 punches and 2 kicks. Seeing that all the human traffickers had been dealt with, Selina snatched the needle and collar syringe from the woman and gave each of the human traffickers an injection. The 4 human traffickers followed in the woman's footsteps and fell to the ground unconscious. However, the man with blood oozing from his mouth might need to be more careful. If he is not sent to the hospital in time, he might really die here. Yeah, not bad. Mu-en nodded. Quite smart. Be careful with that needle and don't use it carelessly. The effect of the drug in this injection is a bit too strong. If this little thief uses it to protect himself, it would be a good choice. By the way, do you know where there is an owl? The little girl has lived here for so long, she should have seen traces of owls. Owl, Selina thought for a moment, pointed in the direction of the suburbs of Gotham and said, there should be more in the suburbs. Looking in the direction of the suburbs of Gotham, Moon nodded slightly, perhaps there really was the shadow of an owl there. Goodbye then, little thief cat. After rubbing Selina's head, Mu-en used the void dash again and disappeared in front of Selina in an instant. How did he disappear, kitten? A homeless boy who had escaped from the hands of the human traffickers asked. This adult was really amazing. He dealt with the traffickers so easily. How should I know? Selina put away the syringe, pulled out the kunai tied to her leg, and shook it at the homeless boy. The first time I saw him, he had nailed half of this throwing knife to the wall. Her words shocked the homeless boy and the tramp, especially the tramp, who pouted. I had never seen anyone this good before I retired. Serena did not refute the two people's doubts. She couldn't catch Mu-en back without knowing it, right? She didn't have the ability to do that. As for Moon, under Selena's instructions, he did find the owl in the suburbs of Gotham. Coo! Coo! The owl hooted on the branch, observing the surrounding situation. Suddenly, the owl spread its wings and flew away. Following the owl's flight path, Mu-En came to an iron gate and fell into deep thought as he looked at the words on the gate. Is this Arkham Asylum? Are the talons of the Court of Owls here? He was well aware of the name of Arkham Asylum, but he could not connect this concentration camp for the insane with the claws of the Court of Owls. I've never heard of it. Is it really here? Looking at the insane asylum in front of him, Mu-En fell into deep thought. Maybe this is where those little birds develop their claws. How about going in and taking a look? Although he had some knowledge of Arkham Asylum, in his impression, Arkham Asylum seemed to have nothing to do with the Court of Owls. Entering Arkham, Moon walked through this horror house-like place and saw many crazy people with abnormal behavior. Some thought they were a pendulum, constantly banging their heads against the wall. Some were obviously big and strong men, but looked innocent. Others sat cross-legged on the bed with their eyes closed, not moving at all. It doesn't look anything special, and Arkham seems to have become famous because of the Batman randomly stuffing people in. There is not much difference between this place and a normal mental hospital. The only difference is the old decoration. This mental hospital is an old Gothic building. The furnishings inside have long been dilapidated, giving people a gloomy and terrifying feeling. Walking through the corridors of Arkham, Moon found a basement blocked by iron bars at an abandoned staircase. Isn't this the cadaver site in Arkham? This basement has obviously been sealed for a long time. The iron net has become a spider's nest with a thick layer of spider web. He had already toured Arkham Asylum and found nothing unusual. It seemed that the owl was just here to look for food. But it is ridiculous that an owl would go to Arkham Asylum to look for food for no reason. You have to know that this is the suburb of Gotham and there are rats everywhere. The owl does not need to go so far to the asylum to find food. Mu-En passed over the iron fence, crossed the fence and walked into the underground. The things in the basement were really beyond his imagination. This place was almost a cold storage, and in the basement were corpses hanging upside down. It really is a place where corpses are hidden. Looking at these bodies hanging upside down, even though Mu-En was used to seeing life and death, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. What on earth is the Dean of Arkham doing? There are only two reasons why so many bodies are frozen in basements. Either the Dean of Arkham deliberately kept the bodies of these people in order to get more money, and used these bodies to impersonate Arkham's patients in order to obtain more funding. Either someone has evil intentions and wants to make a fortune from these corpses. Chapter 55. Dr. Hugo. Clang clang clang. There was a sudden strange noise in the basement, and then Mu-En, who was in void mode, saw a secret door suddenly open in the basement. A bald doctor in a white coat walked out of the secret passage with his hands behind his back. Behind him were two nurses also wearing white coats. They were carrying a stretcher with an unconscious bald patient lying on it. What are they doing? The abnormal behavior of these people made Mu-En curious. Perhaps these people were related to the owl. Following forward, Mu-En, who was in void mode, didn't worry about being discovered at all, and followed the doctor quietly. Passing through the basement where many corpses were hanging, they came to an operating room filled with various tools. Fix him tight, I don't want anything to go wrong with this surgery. The doctor, wearing surgical equipment, gave instructions to the two nurses, but the two nurses remained silent. Apparently they were already used to this kind of thing. Mu-En stood aside and watched their actions quietly. The two nurses tied up the patient with ropes and took out a dose of anesthetic to inject into the patient. After their preparations were complete, the doctor took the skull drill and began the operation. Holes were drilled into the patient's skull, and then the doctor used a milling cutter and a wire saw to open the patient's skull. After completing all this, the doctor put down the tools in his hands and picked up a scalpel from the side. And Mu-En finally understood what the doctor was doing. He was removing the patient's frontal lobe. This doctor has very superb surgical skills, which reminded Mu-En of the corpses in the basement. Those corpses should not have died normally, and they probably contributed to the doctor's surgical skills. The operation was very successful, and the frontal lobe was removed smoothly. After suturing the patient's wound, the doctor put down the tools in his hands and instructed. Send him back and keep an eye on his condition in the near future. The two nurses still did not answer. They carried the patient on the stretcher and walked out of the operating room. The doctor walked out of the operating room, carrying the surgical tray containing the patient's frontal lobe. Mu-En followed him and left through the secret door with them. After walking out of the secret door, Mu-En discovered that the other side of the secret door was actually a storage room in the medical area. The nurse carried the patient to the ward, while the doctor carried the tray to another room. Mu-En also followed him in. He really wanted to know what this guy was going to do with the frontal lobe. The doctor's room was very large, and Moon learned his name, Hugo Strange, from the list on his desk. If I remember correctly, this guy doesn't seem to be a good person either. He had a little impression of who Hugo Strange was. It seemed that many of Bruce's enemies were created by this guy. The enemy of the little bat. Mu-En looked at this guy with great interest. But Hugo knew nothing about this. He carried the plate to the window, and soon an owl appeared at the window. Is this owl looking for him? He was very familiar with this owl. Wasn't it the one that brought him to Arkham Asylum before? Under Moon's curious gaze, Hugo placed the plate in front of the owl and said with a smile. Sorry for the wait, here's your dinner. The owl was not polite and pecked at the frontal lobe on the plate, making a crisp sound on the plate. So he brought that thing back just to feed the owl. Now Mu-En understood why the owl flew towards here. Perhaps it was attracted by the food given by Hugo. When the food on the plate was eaten, the owl flapped its wings and flew away. Mu-En also left Hugo's room and walked towards the city center. Speaking of which, the future of the little bat is worrying. Almost all of his future enemies are perverts. He had already met Hugo, and this bald man who smiled and fed an owl with his frontal lobe could only be said to be one of the countless enemies in Bruce's heroic career. Yes, among Bruce's many enemies, Hugo is not a strong enemy at all. He is well versed in psychology and is a very smart man. He always uses people's psychology to achieve his own goals and cause trouble for Bruce. It's really interesting. I wonder how dire the Gotham will be in the future. He is looking forward to what changes will happen in Gotham when Bruce, who has been trained by him, chooses to become Batman. Will a crazier clown appear, or will the incomparable Batman appear? Moon, can you teach me how to throw darts now? Alfred has taken my darts back. Bruce was holding a box in his hand, which contained a kunai exactly the same as Moon's. It was specially customized for Bruce by Alfred. Of course, apart from being sharp, none of these kunai are bladed, which is a protection for Bruce. Mu-En is an adult and a master of darts. The kunai he uses is very lethal, but that doesn't mean Bruce can do the same. He has to consider Bruce's safety. Picking up a kunai from the box, Mu-En played with it in his hand, and the depression he felt about not finding the court of owls gradually faded away. With a twist of his wrist, the small kunai followed his arm swing and shot towards the wall beside him. Hey, this unsharp-end kunai was actually firmly nailed to the wall. Not bad, it looks like Fuku put a lot of effort into your kunai. With the force of his throw just now, if the material was a little worse, it would definitely bounce out. Since you want to learn so much, then I won't refuse. Moon demonstrated and explained to Bruce, and Bruce listened very carefully, which made Alfred, who was standing at the door, smile. He knew that Mu-En could help Master Bruce get out of his grief. I have to say that Bruce's talent for learning is really strong. In just a few days, he was able to master the dart throwing skills very well. Even if he sometimes couldn't nail the kunai on the dartboard, it was because he was young and weak. This also reminded Mu-En of Tony, who specialized in making a dart cheating device. This guy's scientific research talent was indeed strong, but his mastery of dart throwing skills was really terrible. They are both wealthy, so why is there such a big gap between them? Just as Moon was lost in thought, Alfred came over with some tea. It seems that Master Bruce really likes the dart throwing skills you taught him. He brought a cup of black tea to Mu-En. Now he should be able to get over the sadness of the death of the master and the mistress. He didn't want Bruce to be immersed in sorrow all the time. Bruce was the heir of the Wayne family, and he had to be strong enough. Well, this may be due to his talent. After taking a sip of red tea, Mu-En smiled and said, it takes only a few days to master the throwing technique. This is not something that ordinary people can do. Chapter 56, Teaching Swordsmanship. Bruce is very talented. After mastering the dart throwing skills, he hired Moon to be his teacher with the help of Alfred. And Mu-En did not refuse their offer. He just wanted to teach them some fighting skills, which he did not mind at all. Your body is still weak, so you need to strengthen your exercise in the future. Of course, don't overdo it, otherwise you may hurt yourself. But I can teach you some sword techniques. Mu En took a rapier from the hand of a knight in armor on the side and held the slender sword in front of him. As a member of the Wayne family, you should be familiar with the rapier. Glancing at his knight's armor, Mu En continued. The blade of a rapier is usually round or square, and only the flat tip is sharpened, which highlights the fighting style of the rapier. The rapier focuses on stabbing, but of course the tip can also be used for slashing. As he spoke, Mu En flicked his fingers on the sword, and the western sword made a crisp sound. And what I'm teaching you is also this aspect of swordsmanship, called cunning fox and deceiving face. Cunning fox and deceiving face is a swordsmanship that involves rapid cutting and stabbing, and includes multiple aspects such as attack, defense, counterattack, and footwork. As he spoke, Mu En raised the sword with one hand. In just a few breaths, sword light filled the area in front of him. The western sword in his hand was so fast that it was almost impossible to see clearly. This is a direct attack, called a feint, followed by pace and rhythm. He attacked as he walked, the rapier whistling in his hand, moving forward and backward with his steps. This is an attack with added pace. It's called the dual secret. It uses the tip of the blade to perform a slashing attack while moving. Bruce envied Moon's every move. Even the old butler Alfred was surprised by Moon's western swordsmanship. He is not a child like Bruce. As a butler, he knows a lot of things, but Moon's swordsmanship has changed his understanding of western swords. It turns out that this sword used by nobles in duels can also exert powerful lethality. The cunning fox sword technique was displayed in Mu En's hands. Just like its name, this sword technique was like a cunning fox, constantly switching between stabbing and cutting, and the attack was hard to defend against. The rapier is different from other weapons. In battle, in addition to defending against the opponent's attacks, you also need to quickly find the opponent's weakness so that you can kill him with one strike. Mu En put down the rapier in his hand and picked up two thin wooden sticks. Now, try to attack me with this stick. Throwing a wooden stick at Bruce, Moon said with a smile, use the skills you have mastered to attack me with all your strength. Bruce took the stick and began to attack tentatively. His attack method was very clumsy and his attack intention was obvious. Snapped, raising his hand to sweep away the thin stick that Bruce was attacking, Mu En said calmly, continue. Snapped, continue. Snapped, snapped, snapped. Go on, go on, go on. The clash of sticks and Moon's voice echoed throughout Wayne Manor. After Bruce finished his training, Moon left Wayne Manor and came to Gotham Center again. These days, he has been searching everywhere in Gotham. He believes that the claws of the Court of Owls will definitely show up. But he had traveled half of Gotham and still couldn't find any trace of those claws. Moving quickly through Gotham, various buildings moved behind him. Suddenly, a shadow flashed by and caught Mu En's attention. The shadow was so fast that ordinary people could hardly spot it. It seems that the target has appeared. Mu En used the void sprint to rush towards the shadow, and after getting close, he could see the figure's appearance clearly. Similar to what he remembered, the claws were fully equipped with weapons, and they all wore owl-like helmets on their heads. They used a claw-like grappling hook to move quickly through the city. Speaking of which, what is he going to do? The direction in which the claws moved was Gotham's Blackgate prison. If Claw was heading towards the gang or other family, he might be able to understand it, but the fact that it was heading towards the prison made Mu En a little confused. Is there someone in this prison that they have to deal with? Following Claw, we sneaked into Blackgate prison. Claw seemed to be very familiar with this prison. He did not search around in the prison, but walked straight to a single cell with a clear purpose. After Li Zhua opened the cell door, Mu En discovered that the person imprisoned here was the robber and murderer he had destroyed. Could it be that the Claw is here to silence us? This made Mu En puzzled. In his memory, this was just an ordinary robber without any special identity. Why would Claw sneak into the prison to find this guy? While he was thinking, the claws took action, and a sharp dagger chopped off the robber's neck, and the robber's head fell to the ground. After the robber's head was chopped off, Sharp Claw wiped the blood off the dagger and walked out calmly. But how could Mu En let him go? He had to know that he had been looking for Claw in Gotham for a long time and finally saw him. There was no way he would let Claw return. A kunai flew out of his hand, making a sharp sound in the air and shot towards the Claw. Hey! Sharp Claw reacted quickly, using the weapons he was equipped with to block the kunai. Then Mu En released the void mode and appeared in front of Claw. Now that you're out, why don't you play with me? As he spoke, several kunai flew out from his hands again, blocking all of the Claw's escape routes. Ding ding ding. Accompanied by a series of metallic sounds, sharp claws kept retreating under Mu-N's attack. The bitter force thrown by Mu-N was extremely heavy, and the attack positions were all vital points, which forced sharp claws to try their best to resist. Although he is immortal, it takes a certain amount of time to recover. If his vital parts are severely damaged, he will need even more time to recover. This is the real reason why he keeps resisting Mu-N's attacks. However, he obviously underestimated Mu-N. Although he tried his best to resist the Kunau's attack, he still had many wounds on his body. Okay, warm-up is over. At the moment the last Kunau was thrown, Mu-N suddenly approached, grabbed the sharp claw with one hand and smashed it against the wall. Boom, the sharp claws hit the wall with a dull thud, and then he slammed into the wall again. A faint void force emanated from Mu-N's legs, which burst out with tremendous strength, kicking the claws directly into the wall. If it were an ordinary person, this blow would be enough to take his life, but it was different with sharp claws. Although blood was also flowing, he still held the dagger tightly and counterattacked Mu-N. It seemed that the one who was severely injured just now was not him, but someone else. Yes, it seems that those things do exist in Gotham. Chapter 57. Dionysian Factor. Sharp Claw's physical fitness far exceeds that of ordinary people, but Mu-N knows very well that it is not Sharp Claw's own strength. The claws of the Court of Owls are all resurrected beings controlled by the birds of the Court of Owls. They have amber gold and a small amount of Dionysus factor in their bodies. Just like now, the wounds on the claws are recovering continuously. This is the effect of amber gold and Dionysus factor. Jin Muin didn't care much about amber Jin. He didn't need to embed this thing in his teeth to revive himself. What he really wanted was the Dionysus factor that strengthened his claws. Dionysus factor is a green liquid metal that can give people extremely powerful self-healing abilities and enhance physical fitness. Although the Dionysus factor is called metal, Mu-N feels that there is special energy contained in the Dionysus factor, and he may be able to extract the essence of I from it. And now, in the battle with the claw, this feeling of his became more and more obvious. Jingle bell. The alarm suddenly sounded in Blackgate Prison. The noise of their fight was so loud that it attracted the attention of the prison guards. There were chaotic footsteps coming from the prison corridor, rushing towards them. Looks like we have to get out of here. After saying that, he punched Claw, and the fist-emitting void energy landed on Claw's neck. With a faint breaking sound, Claw fell to the ground. Mu-N quickly retracted all his kunao, raised his claws and entered the void mode, hiding completely before the prison guards arrived. When the prison guards arrived, all they saw was a mess on the floor and an open cell door. Seeing the open cell door, the prison guards' faces changed drastically. If a jailbreak occurred in the prison, the prestige of Blackgate Prison would plummet. Several prison guards walked in with batons drawn, but the situation in the cell frightened them. The criminal they thought had escaped from prison had actually been beheaded, and the blood that flowed out had dyed the floor of the cell red. Quick! Go and inform the warden, our prisoner has been beheaded. The voices of the prison guards echoed in the prison. Many criminals lay on the iron windows in front of the cell door, trying hard to look at the cell where the beheading appeared. For a moment, strange screams, cheers, whistles, and all kinds of sounds echoed in the prison. No criminal was afraid, and they seemed to prefer seeing such a situation. Boom, boom, black rubber batons banged on cell doors as guards intimidated the rowdy criminals into keeping quiet. Mu-N took advantage of the prison guards' movements and quickly left Blackgate Prison with his claws. Shortly after he left, the warden of Blackgate Prison picked up the phone and informed the Gotham Police Department that a criminal in the prison had been killed. The murderer was the robber and murderer who killed the Waynes. Gordon, who had just returned to the police station, felt very complicated after hearing the news. He didn't know if this was Bruce's revenge. After all, there was a strong hatred between Bruce and the criminal, and now Bruce was the most suspected murderer. Harvey, you heard it too. Do you think it was done by the heir of the Wayne Group? You want to get in again? Old Detective Harvey looked at Gordon in shock. That's the heir to the Wayne Group. No one would dare to say anything even if he went to Blackgate Prison to kill that damned prisoner himself, let alone hiring someone to kill him. Harvey felt that his partner had gone crazy. He wanted to get involved in every case. Falcone's threat to kill the funny penguin had not yet brought him to his senses. This is Gotham, the world of gangsters, not bullshit justice. But now all the evidence points to that kid. You should know what will happen to Gotham once the news gets out. The heir to the Wayne Group, the largest capital in Gotham, did not hesitate to hire a killer to kill people in Blackgate Prison in order to avenge his parents. Once such news is published, it will definitely detonate the entire Gotham, and by then, even crazier things will probably happen in Gotham. But Harvey didn't care about Gordon's reminder. He knew Gotham better than Gordon. Not to mention Bruce hiring someone to kill someone, even if he killed all the bastards in the prison, there would be no problem. This is Gotham, where money and power are everything, and everything else is bullshit. However, he still succumbed to Gordon's gaze, and finally put on his hat reluctantly, walked out of the police station with Gordon and headed to Wayne Manor. One day, I have to die with you in the sewers of Gotham. On the rooftop of Wayne Building, Moon was extracting the essence of I from Claw's body. Sharp Claw's body was wrapped in void energy, and as Moon extracted it, his body began to gradually deform. However, no matter how hard Moon tried, he could not extract even a bit of ice essence from it, which made him very disappointed. According to his idea, the Dionysus factor should contain special energy, otherwise it would never have any special effects. However, his claws were almost drained by the void energy and he was unable to extract the essence of I. Is it because the amount of Dionysus factor is too little? The body of Sharp Claw is mainly composed of amber gold, which is embedded in its teeth and penetrates into the blood and cells throughout the body year after year. The Dionysus factor is only a small amount and is specially mixed with amber gold to revive Sharp Claw. Now that the essence of I cannot be extracted from the claws, there are only two possibilities. One is that the amount of Dionysus factor is insufficient and cannot be extracted, the other is that the Dionysus factor really does not contain any energy, it is just pure liquid metal. In comparison, Moon was more willing to believe that it was because of the insufficient number of Dionysus factors. After all, the Dionysus factors consumed by the resurrecting claws were really small. It seems that we won't be able to find the Dionysus factor in a short time. Although he knew that there was a pool of Dionysus somewhere beneath Gotham, he really didn't know the exact location of the pool. Looking down at the twisted claws, energy surged in Moon's hands, and the claws gradually turned into ashes in the void energy, leaving only a tooth with an engraved mark. But then again, what is the purpose of the Court of Owls? To frame Bruce. He was somewhat puzzled by the action of the Court of Owls sending out claws. Although he knew that the Court of Owls and the Wayne family were hostile, it would be more convenient to assassinate Bruce directly than to put the blame on him. Putting the blame on Bruce does not serve any purpose other than causing him some trouble. It is not worth sending out a claw. Thinking back to the robber who was beheaded by the claws, Moon frowned. Perhaps the cause of Bruce's parents' death was not robbery and murder at all. A criminal who committed robbery and murder was not worth the Owl Court's fuss to send out the claws. Perhaps the deaths of the Waynes were related to those birds. Chapter 58. Gordon's visit. Wayne Manor. Bruce was holding a thick file of Wayne Group documents in his hand, reading through it carefully. In addition to exercising and practicing his cunning Western swordsmanship and dart-throwing skills every day, he spent the rest of his time looking through various documents of the Wayne Group. Wayne Group was left to him by his parents, and he must learn to manage the business empire left by his parents. Although it was still difficult for him to look through the documents, Bruce still tried his best to check every document. It was also because of his careful inspection that he discovered some problems with the Wayne Group. Arkham, which was about to be rebuilt, actually fell into the hands of the gang and became a bargaining chip in the gang's struggle for power. That was a project taken over by a foundation under his mother's name, established to build Gotham, but now it has become a battleground for gangs. Just as Bruce was looking through the documents carefully, Alfred walked in. "Master Bruce, a detective from the Gotham Police Department wants to see you." "Want to see me?" Bruce looked up at Alfred in confusion. "Did he say what it was about?" "I'm sorry, sir, they didn't say anything." Alfred shook his head slightly. He asked Gordon but got no response. Gordon and Harvey are now in the reception room downstairs. They, or rather, only Gordon, want to meet Bruce, and although Harvey is here, he still looks reluctant. If he were given another chance, he would never go to Wayne Manor with Gordon. He would rather stay outside Wayne Manor and count ants than get involved in the affairs of these Gotham upper-class people. "You're really going to kill me this time?" Harvey walked back and forth in the living room with his hands on his hips. The luxurious decorations around him not only did not make him relax, but made him even more nervous. "It's okay, trust me, Harvey." Compared to Harvey's uneasiness, Gordon seemed extremely calm. He sat on the sofa in the living room, quietly waiting for Bruce to arrive. Not long after, Bruce walked into the reception room. When he saw Gordon, he was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the person who wanted to see him was the detective he had met once. "I heard from Alfred that you wanted to see me. Is there anything you need my help with?" He wasn't familiar with the two detectives, having only met them once in Crime Alley, and they had never seen each other again. "Well, we are here to inform you of something." Gordon paused for a moment and said, "The murderer who killed your parents was beheaded in prison." When Bruce heard about the murderer, his eyes were full of hatred, but after knowing that the guy had been beheaded, Bruce was stunned for a moment, then he showed a happy expression. Gordon saw all the changes in his expression. The 10-year-old child in front of him had no idea the whereabouts of the murderer. However, this cannot be used as evidence. After all, no killer would be stupid enough to tell his employer his exact location. Therefore, Gordon told Bruce the details of the Blackgate prison and all the information he knew. They talked for a long time. Although Bruce acted happy that his hatred had been avenged, Gordon still couldn't find any flaws in Bruce. Squeak! The door of the living room was suddenly opened and Muen walked in. "Oh, I didn't expect you to have guests." Gordon's visit surprised Muen. Why would this passionate detective appear in Wayne Manor if he wasn't out to catch criminals? Seeing Moon walking into the living room, Gordon recalled the miserable state of the murderer when he first saw him. If he had not been sent to the hospital in time, the murderer would have lost more than just a pair of eyes. "Sir, where did you go just now?" He suspected that it was Muen who did it. He still clearly remembered how serious the murderer's injuries were. Perhaps it was because Bruce was dissatisfied with the judge's verdict that he asked him to hire Muen to sneak into the prison to eliminate the root of the problem. "Me? I just sat in the bar for a while." This was not something Muen said nonsense, he had indeed just returned to Wayne Manor from the bar. After killing the Claw, he walked into a bar and had a glass of whiskey, which he never liked. His greatest motivation in Gotham cannot be achieved for the time being, so he can only use this method to relieve the depression in his heart. After hearing Moon's answer, Gordon looked at Harvey. If Moon's answer was true, Harvey's connections could help. Soon Gordon asked Harvey to leave, which made the slightly annoyed Harvey feel relieved. He really didn't want to stay here. After sending Gordon away, Moon turned to look at Bruce. Perhaps the real target of the Court of Owls was Bruce. This detective was quite alert, but he was still misled by those little birds. Moon's words left Bruce and Alfred a little confused. What did it mean to be misled by those little birds? "Teacher, is it possible that the little bird you mentioned deliberately guided them to point to me?" Bruce didn't understand. He clearly didn't do anything, so why did the so-called bird do this? "That's right." Muen nodded and took out an owl mask and several sharp weapons from his arms. "These things are the weapons of the killer, and he has a name you have all heard of, Claws." "Claws?" This made Bruce and Alfred confused, as they seemed to have never heard of this so-called Claw. "You guys probably know about the scary nursery rhyme about the Court of Owls that's circulating in Gotham, right?" After being reminded by Muen, Alfred was the first to react. There is indeed a line about claws in the nursery rhyme of the Court of Owls, but this nursery rhyme is probably just a legend. Could it be that the Court of Owls is real? Bruce looked at Moon with wide eyes. He had also heard the nursery rhyme of the Court of Owls and even looked for it several times, but he could not find any trace of the Court of Owls. In the end, he had to give up. It seemed that the Court of Owls was just a legend. But now, Muen actually told them that the Court of Owls existed, and the weapons in his hands were left behind by the minions sent out by the Court of Owls. "Are you looking for the Court of Owls every night when you go out?" Alfred asked. "Yes." Muen nodded. "I searched for a long time in Gotham, chasing the owl across most of Gotham, and finally found this claw." Picking up a dagger from the weapons, Muen chuckled and shook the dagger. "This sword is the weapon that chopped off the murderer's head. I saw it with my own eyes." Looking at the dagger in Moon's hand, Alfred fell into deep thought. Although they are both in Gotham, the Court of Owls, which has always existed in the legend, has no intersection with the Wayne family at all. How could they suddenly send out the Claws to behead the murderer and frame Bruce? This really seems to be misleading the Gotham police, making them suspect that it was done by killers sent by the Wayne family. "Where is Claw now? Can we see what he looks like?" Bruce asked curiously. Chapter 59. Bruce got into a fight. "You can, but you will be disappointed." Muen laughed. His sharp claws had turned to ashes in his hands, leaving only an amber gold tooth mixed with a small amount of Dionysus factor. He took out the amber gold tooth and threw it on the table in the living room, but this made the two of them stunned. This is the tooth of the claw. I burned the claw, leaving only this special tooth at this moment. Bruce picked up the amber gold tooth curiously. There was a small metal coin embedded in the bottom of the tooth. What kind of coin is this? Why have I never seen it before? That's the mark of a claw. Only teeth with this kind of metal embedded in them are real claws. Mu-En replied casually that the amber gold teeth were a unique symbol of the claws. After all, the amber gold teeth were the foundation for the claws to remain at their peak. After a period of recuperation, Bruce got over the loss of his parents and returned to school. However, the loss of his parents made him isolated at school and no one was willing to communicate with him. I heard that Bruce's parents were shot to death by robbers. How pitiful he is. A girl saw Bruce being isolated and expressed sympathy for his plight. Ha ha ha, you mean that orphan without a father or a mother? He deserves it. A burly boy laughed sarcastically. The students in this school had similar family backgrounds, and Bruce's parents were already dead, which gave him the confidence to not care about Bruce's identity. If it were in the past, Bruce might only be able to argue with the other party, but under Moon's training, Bruce had already mastered excellent fighting skills. Moreover, Mu-En had said more than once during training that one must be strong in heart and always remain calm no matter how angry one is. Even if a fight occurs, it is best to resolve it cleanly and efficiently. For example, now, he was angry and forced himself to calm down. Since the other party insulted his parents, he had to teach him a lesson. He took a cunning step and punched the classmate in the face unexpectedly. His sudden attack made the classmate instantly furious. He stood up and rushed towards Bruce, wanting to beat Bruce up by relying on his strong physique. But how could a student who only knew how to use the turtle punch be a match for Bruce who had been trained by Moon? Bruce staggered his steps, constantly avoiding the student's wildly swinging fists, while at the same time constantly counter-attacking in the gaps between the student's attacks. It didn't take long for Bruce to knock the other person to the ground, and this was when Bruce was restrained and didn't use any weapons. If he was given a wooden stick, he could easily beat his opponent until he was bleeding. This was the power of the fighting skills that Mu-En taught him. The fight between them was soon discovered by the school. The boy who was hit by Bruce touched his bleeding nose and cried out in pain. What happened? The teachers and the principal rushed over. The students in the school were all their sponsors, so no problems could occur. When the boy saw the teacher and the principal coming, he quickly shut up. It was not because he was afraid of the teacher and the principal, but as a boy who considered himself a tough guy, he wanted to show his tough side. But Bruce did not do as he wished. After hearing the principal and teacher's questions, he told them everything. The two students had a conflict and even fought to the point of bleeding, which gave the principal a headache. Whether it is Bruce, the heir of Wayne Group, or this sturdy boy, their families are in the upper class of Gotham and they were born with a silver spoon in their mouths. Even though the Wayne family has a higher status in Gotham, for him as the principal, neither of them is someone he can afford to offend. Send them to the infirmary for treatment, and notify their guardians. The principal could already imagine what kind of storm he was about to face. No, I'll go by myself. Bruce refused the teacher's help. The only injury on his body was a slight abrasion on his hand, which was caused by accidentally hitting the boy with the corner of the badge. Seeing Bruce refusing the teacher's help, the boy also stubbornly refused the teacher's help, endured the pain in his body, and walked towards the infirmary. The phone suddenly rang in Wayne Manor, and when Alfred answered the phone, his expression looked very surprised. It turned out to be a call from the school, and the content of the call was that Bruce had a fight with a classmate, and the principal notified the guardian to come to the school. This made Alfred a little unbelievable. The young master who had always been well behaved and obedient would one day be notified to his parents because of a fight. What happened? Afu. Seeing Alfred's surprised expression, Mu-En was a little curious. This old butler never showed such an inappropriate expression. Master Bruce got into a fight with someone. By the way, don't call me Alfred, call me Alfred. After saying that, Alfred walked towards the gate. He had to go to school quickly because the person on the phone said that Bruce and the other party had been sent to the infirmary. Okay, Afu. Mu-En shrugged and followed. He was quite interested in Bruce's first fight, and he wanted to know to what extent Bruce fought with his opponent. Sitting in the car driven by Alfra, the two headed towards Bruce's school. At the same time as they set off, in a small manor somewhere in Gotham, a couple was driving towards the school with fiery eyes, completely disregarding the safety of pedestrians on the road. "No one can bully my son, no one." A scream came from the car and became farther and farther away as the car moved forward. When they arrived at the school, the principal was standing at the school gate welcoming them. "Mr. Alfred, this is..." the principal asked when he saw Muan beside Alfred. "His name is Muan, and he is also Master Bruce's teacher." After Alfred's introduction, Muan shook hands with the principal with a smile on his face. "I heard from Alpha that Bruce had a fight with his classmates at school, so I came to take a look." As they were talking, they heard footsteps behind them. A woman in fur was walking towards them, carrying a delicate bag. Behind her was a man with a frown on his face. Both of them looked difficult to deal with. "Where's that little bastard who beat up my son?" As soon as she arrived in front of the principal, the woman started chattering like an old hen covered in colorful feathers. There was only one meaning behind her words: the student who beat her son was the bastard between her mother and a homeless man, and no matter who he was, she would make him pay the price. Although her husband didn't say anything, his expression showed that he definitely agreed with his wife. "It's your turn to perform, Alfu." Patting Alfred on the shoulder, Moon crossed his arms and watched Alfred's conversation with the couple with interest. The couple knew Alfred. As the Wayne family's butler, it was impossible for people of their status not to know him. Therefore, when talking to Alfred, they appeared humble and polite. Chapter 60, Soft-Hearted Bruce. During the conversation with Alfred, the couple's expressions gradually changed. They had a vague guess in their hearts that the student who had fought with their son was the heir of the Wayne family. Although their family also belongs to the upper class of Gotham, the Wayne family is at the top of Gotham, and they cannot compete with the Wayne family. The couple stopped talking to Alfred and walked into the school with everyone else with very grim expressions. In the infirmary, Bruce was confronting the boy. The two glared at each other and let the medical staff treat their injuries. Click, the door of the infirmary was opened and the principal walked in with everyone. "Master Bruce, how are you?" "I'm fine." Bruce glared at the boy again. He said I was an orphan and a freak, and that my parents deserved to die. These words made Alfred's expression change, and he looked at the boy and his parents seriously. "If it's just a conflict between children, I can ignore it. After all, this is what the young master must go through in order to grow up. But you shouldn't mention the master and the mistress, let alone say that they deserve the persecution they suffered." Alfred's stern expression made the boy fearfully move closer to his parents, as if being with his parents could make his fear disappear. "Mr. Butler, it's his fault. I'm sorry he would say such a thing." The boy's father stepped forward and said apologetically that he didn't expect his son to say such a thing, and said it in public. "You can say this kind of remarks to yourself, but it must not be heard by anyone, and it must not be said in front of the protagonist." Not only did his son talk about it, but he also fought with the protagonist of the discussion, which was very bad for their family's situation. If the Wayne family wanted to hold him accountable, they would have to pay a sufficient price, so he had to resolve the matter privately. "It's no use saying this to me. You must ask for forgiveness from the young master." Alfred was still serious. This was related to the reputation of the Wayne family and he had to do this. "Young master, what do you think? No matter what decision you make, I will make them do it." Alfred's words made everyone present feel nervous, and everyone looked at Bruce, as if waiting for the judge to drop the hammer and pronounce the verdict. Under everyone's gaze, Bruce pursed his lips and thought for a while. "I hope he apologizes to me in front of everyone. No one can slander Mom and Dad. Bruce is kind-hearted and only wants the other party to apologize. He may not punish the other party, but he will never allow anyone to speak ill of his parents." After hearing this, the boy puffed out his chest slightly and showed an attitude of refusing to apologize. He would not apologize. In his heart, Bruce was a freak and his parents deserved to be killed, but just as he put on this expression, he suddenly felt a pain on his back, and his mother's sharp nails scratched him. "We are willing to apologize." The mother nodded in the boy's disbelieving gaze and replied, "He will definitely apologize." Hearing this, Bruce nodded slightly, turned and walked out of the infirmary, while a noise was heard in the infirmary. The spoiled boy was not willing to apologize, as this was an insult to a tough guy like him. But his quarrel did not get his parents to give in. Faced with his parents' dangerous gaze, the boy finally gave in and agreed to apologize to Bruce. He was not stupid and could understand what his parents meant. Although they always ridiculed the person in power in the Wayne family at home, it did not mean that he could say it in public. Compared to the price the family paid, his face was worthless. Since the problem could be solved simply by an apology, they naturally would not do anything else. Of course, this is also because they are facing the Wayne family. If it were any other family, they would not agree to the other party's conditions so easily. This fight made many students realize how powerful Bruce was and they accepted him again. But Bruce didn't hang out with those students all day, and now his life has become more fulfilling. Because after he fought, Muen felt that his physical fitness had been greatly improved, so he planned to teach him a fighting technique specifically for fighting. You have made good use of the cunning and deceitful fighting skills. You have achieved that level without using any weapons, just relying on your fists. I have to say that you are really talented. Muen praised him for a few words, then changed the subject. But you are still too kind. It's not good to always show mercy. Bruce could obviously have knocked down his opponent faster, but he still struggled with him for a while before finally defeating him. This was not as ruthless as the cunning fox's fatal blow. Sorry, I just wanted to teach him a lesson, Bruce apologized. Of course you want to teach him a lesson, I understand that. Looking at Bruce's apologetic face, Muen smiled and patted his shoulder. But that doesn't stop you from knocking him down first, right? When fighting an opponent, you can taunt him or use various methods to provoke him, but you must not show mercy. Even if you don't intend to kill your opponent, you must make sure that he has no power to fight back. Bruce is still too soft-hearted now. Although he has mastered some fighting skills, he is always overly worried about his opponents getting hurt when fighting with others. This is not acceptable. Under Moon's instruction, Bruce gradually lowered his head. He understood what Muen meant, but he didn't want to go to that extent. After all, the other party was just a student like him. Seeing Bruce like this, Muen knew that it was not so easy for Bruce to change. Forget it. You can't force this kind of thing. I'll teach you a fighting technique first, so that when you have a conflict with others, you can only use the trickery of a cunning fox to deal with it. He planned to teach Bruce a fighting technique called Grim Fury, which is a fighting technique that combines rapid combos and heavy blows. Once the fight begins, the opponent can be defeated with continuous attacks. Like the cunning fox, the Cold Rage is also a combat technique that can be used for both offense and defense. But the difference is that this technique uses your body as a weapon to fight, so I will let you strengthen your physical fitness. Having said that, Moon began to show it in front of Bruce. Dong dong dong. His fists fell on the sandbag like waves, and his legs kicked the sandbag heavily from time to time, making the sandbag shake everywhere. Muen's strength was enormous, and his attack speed was also very fast. Bruce only felt a fist shadow appear in front of his eyes, and then he saw the heavy sandbag filled with iron sand being hit all over the place by Muen. Similar to Cunning Fox, this is the basic attack method of Cold Rage, called Fury Incitement. Of course, don't be fooled by the name of the move, you still have to stay calm during the battle, only by staying calm at all times can you ensure victory in the battle.